Hey, everybody. I'm Portia Sabin, president of the Music Business Association, and welcome to our final day of Driving Change. We created this event to provide a forum for the perspectives of many and to present concrete ways we can move forward as an industry in making necessary change. And the last 2 days have been nothing short of inspiring. If you missed any of our speakers or panels, you'll be able to watch them on our website, musicbiz.org. Some highlights for me include Dina Lapolte telling us that she had to start her own law firm because no one would hire her. And also the work being done by the Sims Foundation and the Music Health Alliance to help artists and others in our business get mental health care and health insurance. Everyone has had such great stories about their paths in the music industry. I hope you guys have been getting a lot of information and inspiration so far. I want to thank Porsche Cars North America for their generous sponsorship of this important event. If you haven't yet visited the Porsche Content Hub, it's hosted at musicbiz.org. Please do so to learn more about Porsche and their experience centers located in Atlanta and Los Angeles. We'll be flashing the exclusive link throughout the conference and in the chat for easy access. I also want to thank all of you for donating to the Music Business Association Scholarship Fund. I am thrilled to announce that we've raised over $16,000 so far from this conference. This money goes directly to students who will be the next generation of music business professionals, and that is one of the most important things we can do as a community. So thank you guys again so much. It's been quite a success in that regard. And now we have a video from Jane Yee, Mobility Services Marketing Specialist for Porsche Cars North America.
My name is Jane Yee. I'm the Mobility Services Marketing Specialist at Porsche Cars North America. I'm responsible for our brand and growth marketing of Porsche Drive. Porsche Drive is our brand name for our mobility services platform, which includes subscription and rental services. Porsche Drive today has two main products. The first is called subscription, and you can think of this like Netflix for Porsche. So you could subscribe to a single Porsche month to month or every 3 months. So if you want to get a 911, let's say month to month, you're able to do so all through a Porsche Drive app. You're also able to subscribe to a fleet of Porsches. So, if 1 week you want to drive a 911 and over the weekend you want to take your family or your friends on a road trip that you had planned, you're able to flip into a Cayenne or one of our mini SUVs to take your family with you on this trip. And then the second product that we have is called rental. And you can rent daily, weekly, depending on your needs. And again, everything is done and accessed through our Porsche Drive app. Actually say my team and my department were the definition of driving change, right? With business development, we have so many different pillars, everything from digital transformation to strategy to innovation. And where I sit in with mobility services, we're driving change for the automotive industry, I would say, and for Porsche Cars. We're constantly changing. And I think during this time, what's been great is we're able to kind of strip back down to the foundation and recalibrate and making sure that we understand, what truly our objective and our mission is. Our team we did this exercise just to make sure that we're utilizing our resources properly, making sure that the vision that we have still stands even during these changing times. And I would say we're still continuing on that path to drive change. Some pivot strategies that myself and my team have been using is really just rolling back to the foundation. I feel like a lot of times with so much pre-planning that we try to do to ensure that we're ready for the years to come, sometimes I think it helps to take a look back, whether it's on a quarterly basis or even on a bi-weekly basis. Our team, we have these things called a sprint cycle. So every 2 weeks, we're actually recalibrating. We're trying to figure out whether, we're still on track to get to where our main objectives are. Many things happen during the sprint cycle. We have a category where it's just a list of to-dos, right? During this 2-week time, what do we really want to accomplish as a team? We're continuously going through each of the items. We're categorizing items that we finished and accomplished during the 2-week sprint, but we're also reevaluating and making sure that all the items on the to-do are priorities as well and things that we should focus on. And I know 2 weeks sounds like a really short amount of time, but I would say really helps us make sure that we're headed to where we want to, realign with where everyone else on the team is at, and ultimately just help us achieve our goals in the best way possible. I think what I've learned most of all during this time, and I'm sure everyone else, is that there's certain things that are within your purview of control and there's some things that aren't. And what I've been able to do and what I've been trying to do is keeping a consistent routine, and I haven't changed that routine since the beginning of the year. And whether that's, making a fresh cup of coffee for myself to get started with my day, whether that's listening to my favorite podcast every morning to keep me up to date with my news. These are some of the things that I've kept through with me today. Another thing that's really helped me throughout these times is, our walls can start creeping in on us, even if we're in the biggest of houses or even if you're in a tiny condo like mine. I think it can get really stuffy at times. And so what I've been trying to do is change my scenery a little bit. My scenery might end up being, working in my living room for one of the days, working in my bedroom for another one of the days. Some of my other friends have been taking staycations or even going to an outdoor cafe to spend their work from home day. And because I think just having that change of scenery can really help uplift you and keep things fresh. Porsche, we're a very data-driven company. And what I mean by that is, any sort of decision-making process or any output that we're trying to achieve, everything needs to be rooted in data. And we not only have access to data points internally within our company, but we're also extremely encouraged to look externally to do proper research. We have Google at our fingertips. We have access to a variety of different publications and consulting reports. And so it's really important for us to marry all of that information and make sure that we're coming to the right decision. And I'd say, my time at Porsche has really helped me hone in that type of mentality. But I would say on the flip side of things, I've been truly blessed to be surrounded by a variety of different leaders. I think what's really great about our company is we have so many great colleagues from all different backgrounds. And yes, we're all here for automotive, but we all are focusing on a variety of different subject matters, whether it's customer relations, whether it's human resources, whether it's partnerships, after sales, and they all come with different knowledge points that I'm able to lean on as well. And I try and bounce a lot of my ideas, not across the same department, but across different departments as well, just to make sure that any solution or decision that I'm trying to make is not only soundproof within internally among my peers, but I think also when you get an outsider's perspective, you're really able to validate that decision. My advice for driven women at Porsche and also outside of our company is to don't be afraid to push on the brakes. It's the perfect metaphor that I actually take with me ever since I had the experience to drive at the Porsche Experience Center tracks. And what I actually learned from the driving instructors there is that the fastest racer in any race isn't actually the racer that you would think is going from 0 to 60 in every which direction on the handling circuit. It's actually the racers who have mastered that delicate balance between accelerating but then also braking. On a handling circuit, there's turns, there's hills, there's hairpins, and there's corners. And specifically during this segment where you're turning into a corner, you're actually supposed to brake before you enter this corner because this is going to help you accelerate out even faster. If you don't brake ahead of time, you're actually getting into a really, really tight corner at a really high speed. So what I've learned is actually pushing the brakes isn't going to push me backwards. It's actually going to help me set the stage so that I can accelerate even further later down the road.
Hello again, everybody. So before we get to our keynote today, I just want to remind everyone to continue using the chat box as you always do. Put in your information, your contact, say hi to people. It's a great place to network when we can't be together in person. Use the Q&A box for sure to do questions. I will try to get to the questions today. I mean, I'm anticipating such an exciting discussion with these two gentlemen that I'm not actually sure I can get to the questions, but I know that people will have a lot of really good questions for them. So please put those in the Q&A box. All right, I am so excited to now welcome our keynote speakers, co-founder and CEO of Made in Memphis Entertainment and Grammy award-winning songwriter, David Porter, and president and managing director of Made in Memphis Entertainment, Tony Alexander. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you, Portia. It's good to be here.
Glad to be here.
So happy to have you. I've been looking forward to this conversation all week. As you guys know, we've had this conference for the last couple of days and we've had some great speakers, some great topics, but the focus of this whole enterprise is to figure out, how can we push real change for our industry in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And what I think is so exciting about having you guys on to speak with us today is that you're really genuinely doing that. Like, you guys are a case study in the city of Memphis. I've read that your company, your enterprise, your family of companies is dedicated to reestablishing Memphis as a key music industry hub, which, first of all, is no small task. So, congratulations, that's a big job. But also that you're approaching it from a perspective of just complete diversity and inclusion. So I'm so thrilled to talk to you today.
Thank you.
So Tony, I kind of want to start with you. I read a column that you wrote you called Diversity a Competitive Advantage, which is, everybody knows is true. All the studies show that's a fact. But I loved it because you said that your entire C-suite at your company should work as diversity officers.
That's right. I think the challenge historically has been that companies have hired a chief diversity, equity, inclusion officer, and that person tends to stay less than 3 years on average. There's so much turnover because they're usually underfunded, and it was really more of a publicity stunt than an actual commitment to change. And so those people tend to get frustrated and then they move on to another opportunity. If there's not a commitment at the most senior levels of the organization to have diversity, to have equity, to have inclusion, it's not going to work. You're just going to have a frustrated inclusion officer. And so as we envisioned building a business that was going to have a meaningful impact on a city and on a community of people, we knew that we had to be serious from the ground up, that every aspect of what we did needed to be inclusive. And we had to focus in on making sure it was built into the fabric of what we do.
And, I feel like we're living through a specific moment here as well, right? And David, I wanted to ask you, because you've been around longer than Tony and I, but does this moment feel different to you? Is there a difference sort of in the air?
Well, if you had asked me that 4 or 5 years ago, I would say that it felt different but encouraging. This feels different but very concerning. And so the innards of people, for lack of better words, the spirit of right is somewhere in them, but you're seeing more situations where people are making poor decisions as it relates to other people, which makes the world seem like there's more confusion than there should be. And so the difference nowadays kind of reverts me back to a mindset that I had back in the 50s and 60s when we were trying to make a significant change in this country.
Yeah, definitely. Tony, can you talk, what I've read about your company is so interesting. I mean, you have 50% of your operating businesses are led by women, and more than 75% of your employees are Black. So you guys are really walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Right. And so when we think about that, so we have 5 operating businesses, and 3 of the 5 are led by women. That would be our sync business, our label, and our studio franchise. And they are amazing women. And what we're also seeing that at the next layers of leadership, they're bringing up another generation of capable people that are going to take this organization further. So David and I are very comfortable that the future of this business is in great hands. The challenge, though, is, and I know we've heard this a lot from a lot of senior executives at big corporations, that they can't find people to go into these positions, whether it be women, whether it be people of color. And what we've known for quite some time is if you can't find them, then you need to develop them. And so, in a lot of ways, we've invested in people that no one else would give a chance to. Second chance employees, non-traditional employees. We have people who work for us who may have been in prison a year ago. But the reality of the matter is, they have talent, they have certain capabilities. What they didn't have was a chance. And so we had to build internal programs to develop these individuals to be future executives of the company. One of the biggest challenges that we have to deal with is that it can be extremely frustrating trying to develop people and help them build skills that they don't have, certain skills that many of us take for granted, that if we've been in professional environments for extended periods of time, we just assume that everyone should know that. And so getting the whole organization to buy in, that those individuals that we have that have been in professional environments, being patient as we take the whole organization through the basics of etiquette, business etiquette, and how you carry yourself in certain environments. And it may be a refresher for some, it may be boring for some, but overall, it's that investment that we're making that makes the whole organization more effective.
And how do you recognize that talent in the rough, in a new person? Because that in itself sounds to me like a serious skill.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. What we've found is that one thing that is it kind of goes without saying is work ethic and hustle. That's not something that you can teach. But when you see someone that's very they're very persistent. David can probably share numerous examples of how we've had people who showed up at our door every day. Now, our studio is very secure. You have to have access control to get throughout the building. And we would have people that would just show up every day, just wanting an opportunity. When given the opportunity, they are willing to do whatever it takes to demonstrate that they're committed to the vision of what we're trying to accomplish. And so when you see somebody who has that level of persistence, they have that work ethic, they have that drive to succeed, and yet they've also demonstrated in some areas of their past life that they're team players, whether they played organized team sports or something of that nature, that it's not going to always be about them. Those are the kinds of characteristics that we're looking for, because team players are the kinds of people that are going to allow for this organization to succeed.
And Tony, I would say that if you got the spirit of willingness to look for people that you can give that kind of opportunity to. I come from a place called Stax Records. Stax Records was a country and Western label called Satellite Records when I walked across the street and tried to convince the gentleman to give me an opportunity. And the thing about that was he was recording country music. He was saying that was his emphasis. There was no success attached to Satellite Records. And because of my persistence of going over more than 1 or 2 times to ask if they would give me a chance, they decided to allow me to record a demo. When I recorded the demo, I brought into that environment a guy by the name of Booker T. Jones to play baritone horn on the demo for me. I brought another guy by the name of Andrew Love to play saxophone for me. I brought another guy by the name of William Bell to sing background for me. And so I recorded a demo. This label, country and Western label, became Stax Records shortly thereafter. Booker T, the baritone player, became the leader of a group called Booker T and the MGs. Andrew Love, the saxophone player, became the leader of the horn section called the Memphis Horns. William Bell recorded one of the initial hits of Stax Records, as a lead vocalist himself, called "You Don't Miss Your Water Till Your Well Run Dry." After that, the staple singers, the Emotions, Albert King, the Sam and Dave, the artist roster blew up as a sole label, which really exposed the fact that if you give someone an opportunity, if you don't hold barriers because they've not had the experience of success at that particular time, but just open up your hearts to sensibilities for giving them a chance, you might be surprised.
That's such an inspiring story, David. And I feel like it's one we hear over and over when we talk to people in the music business, because a lot of times it takes that kind of persistence and dedication and sort of confidence, whether it comes from, a wellspring of like a real amount of confidence, like, oh, I really know I have talent, or just hubris. You need that. You need the confidence to put yourself out there and say, I want to do this. I want to work in this world, and, please give me a chance. Because a lot of people have stories like that where they did get a chance, and now look at them, they're hugely successful.
Exactly.
But, what you guys are doing is also, it reminds me of when I interviewed Jeff Harleston as the keynote on Tuesday. He said, when he showed up at Universal, he was one of very few Black people. And the older Black guys who were the executives put their arms around him and took care of him and brought him in and showed him the ropes and championed him. So you need both, you need the confidence to walk up to the front door, but then you need someone to bring you in and help you when you get there. And I feel like that's the other piece of this puzzle that you guys are so beautifully demonstrating, give people a chance, but then help them along the way.
I came from a period in the early 60s where Black talents were not really given very many obvious chances to be successful, not only in the performance aspect, but the financial aspects as well. So I learned very early on. I was the first staff writer for Stax Records. So I was about bringing others in and giving them chances. But I also was being helped by other guys at other labels who had slight positions of promotion man or a guy who wanted to have a little bit of success as a writer, but not major success, helping with information as well. So you develop a sense of consciousness, certainly from my period, of that's how important that is. And part of what we want to do in Made in Memphis Entertainment is carry that on into the now, and being sure that what we are conveying to the industry at large is that we can show success with people given the chance.
Absolutely. Can you talk a little bit more of some of the second chance hires? I think that's such an incredible thing, and I haven't heard about a lot of other people doing it, so I'm really interested to hear how that works.
Yeah, so now we don't have necessarily established programs where we're working with the government or anything like that. But what we've been able to do is work with individuals, as we talked about before, that demonstrated a certain skill set that we were willing to embrace. And so these aren't people who are coming in as janitors or anything like that. They are actually on management track positions. So that includes engineers that are coming in and working in our studios, producers. That also means people who would be doing videography, creative design, working with our publishing company, with some of the arrangements to go out and start to help us build writing camps and things of that nature. And so what we have essentially done is we've kind of dispensed with the resume requirement. So when people are looking for jobs at Made in Memphis Entertainment, I don't think we've looked at more than one or two resumes, David, over the years, because that does not determine the type of person that we're looking for. So everyone that's part of the business, we've actually just sat down and talked to them. And we wanted to hear their story. And we wanted to hear their vision for their lives and what they wanted to accomplish. And we were listening for certain things. And if the conversation was then we did not really want to move forward. But when we heard a lot of we and things of that nature, collective discussion, because knowing that to build anything from an idea. So when we started this, it was an idea, and now to be viable businesses, it requires a collective commitment to a vision that's bigger than you. And so when we hear people telling stories of how they want to see something different for themselves, for their families, but also for others in their community, those are the kinds of people that we're attracted to and that we're hoping are attracted to this organization.
When I interviewed on Tuesday, my HR panel, I loved so much what they had to say about thinking of your business as a puzzle and finding the next right piece. And because that makes it so different than just looking at a list of candidates with, checking off these, yes, quality, yes, qualifications.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's more organic, and it feels more like you're really going out and finding the person for the job. And they said, those people also said, when you find the right person, but they're not there yet, you develop them and you work on them and you help them until they get to that point. And to me, that's such a different way, and a better way of doing it. I feel, go ahead.
And I kind of, we kind of have a philosophy that it's hard to know what your needs are going to be in the future, because it's such a changing landscape. So when we see people who have certain characteristics, even if there's not a job for them, it's better to get quality people and find something for them to do, than to create a job description and go out and try to find people. And so it seems like we're always looking. So we may not have a job posting right now, but we're always looking for a certain quality of person, because they're always going to make the organization better. So when they come along, we're not going to let lack of a job get in the way of trying to figure out how to make this work, because this person could be phenomenal and could be the next CEO of Made in Memphis Entertainment.
Absolutely. I ran a record label for 13 years, and we would always have interns. And the three best interns that we ever had, who just walked in the door and we were like, oh yeah, this person is fantastic. All three of them are still in the music business today. Two of them run their own businesses that they started entrepreneurially, after they worked with us for a period of time. So, it's like, you can't keep good people down. So I completely agree. When you find a good one, just grab them. It's like, just come and sort the mail or something, answer the phone. We'll figure it out. So this has been 5 years now. You guys have been working on this project, and you've grown considerably. What's your next sort of the next unfolding portion of your business plan?
Well, I think.
Go ahead, Tony, please.
I think what we really need to do is further solidify the businesses that we have built or acquired. One of the things that we had to do, because we're trying to really do something significant for the city of Memphis. We certainly want a global business, but we really want to have a meaningful impact locally in Memphis. And so the challenge that we've had, and this is a function of the fact that in a lot of ways, Memphis has had a lot of starts and stops. It's a city that is a very proud city, full of so much talent that has been exploited in many ways. And so there's a level of distrust amongst the community, that every few years a savior comes to town claiming that they're going to do some miraculous things, only to disappoint. And so a lot of what we've done in building successful businesses has had an impact outside of Memphis. And so now what we really have to do is translate some of those successes locally, so that the people who we did a lot of this for can see the value of it. But the reason we had to do it that way is because, as David loves to say, we're not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about what we're going to do. We have to point to successes and then say, okay, you see what we've done. This is what we want to continue to do, and we want to benefit you. And so it kind of, our studio is a perfect example of that. Our recording studio, it's a 17,000 square foot facility, state of the art, one of the most amazing studios in the country. And what we did was we branded it as For You Recording. It's a play on both the address, 400 Union Avenue, but also we built this. This is the message to the creatives. We built this for you. And we wanted the community to know that we built this for you. You can go to other studios, but this is the one that we built for you. And that message is resonating with the community. So that was step one in our business plan of really trying to build a meaningful economic impact in Memphis. It started with a lot of major artists recording at that facility. So now the economic impact of that facility is pretty amazing. That over $60 million worth of economic impact has come out of the existence of our facility being right there in Memphis, Tennessee. Then we take it to another level that we've been working on building relationships with our publishing company, with writers and producers, and being able to develop some things for them. And so now we're trying to create an environment where there is a real alternative to a lot of what has been out there. Historically, whether it be the majors or large independents have come into Memphis and they've poached the talent and pretty much forced them to relocate. And what we're trying to do is send a very clear message that if you're a creative and you're in Memphis and you want to stay in Memphis, you have an alternative. And so we're going to keep everybody else honest. We don't expect to get every deal, but what we do expect to do is make sure that if someone is offering you a bad deal, you can always come and get a good deal with us. And so that is really our focus, is creating an ecosystem in Memphis that can support an industry, but also challenge all of the competition that would come into Memphis. You're not going to come into Memphis and rip off the creatives. If you come into Memphis, you're going to have to put a good deal on the table, or else you're going to lose that deal to us. And that is really our focus, is putting energy and effort in forcing everybody who comes into Memphis trying to sign talent that they're going to have to put their best foot forward.
And additionally, what we've done, even with the talent, the performing talent, Stax Records was built around artist development. And so a part of, and a significant part of what we do with talent is we take the time, and we've taken the time to develop their creative instincts and their artistic instincts where there's some potential serious marketability for them. Well, that takes time and a considerable amount of investment. So you're taking the time to properly develop the talents where it makes practical, logical sense to spend substantial money in promoting and marketing them. So we've taken our time to deal with artist development, and that's where we are in the formative steps of that with the talents. We have 3 artists on our label that we're working, and that's what we're doing.
And that's an excellent point, David. And if I could just elaborate on that, because so Portia, one of the things that we have noticed is that many organizations, whether it be the majors or large independents, they're moving higher up on the food chain, and they're now going after people who have already established themselves as having a fan base and being able to generate lots and lots of income. And so what that leaves is the independent artists that are on the lower tiers, or are just getting started, or who have not really broken through at that level. And so artist development is certainly something that we're investing in, because we know that that's what creates longevity and catalog value. And so to be able to do that, and that's why we invested in multiple businesses, because we understand it takes time to develop artists. And so in order to be patient and seeing the fruit of that labor, you have to have other areas of the business that are profitable to be able to sustain your efforts to be able to be patient with these artists as they're being developed.
Absolutely. Independent labels are the risk takers of the music industry. I said it when I ran an independent label. I will always say it. I mean, we put our money up for the people that have no followers, because we believe in them, because we hear something, because we think that they've got what it takes. And, that is a tough business. So you're absolutely right. That was wise to move into multiple ventures, so you can have some capital while you're developing these artists. So I'm interested in this. I'm always interested. I've asked everybody this. I feel like, over the course of my career, I've found that I really value educating artists, right? Because it's difficult to have a business relationship with someone who doesn't understand the business at all. And it's a little difficult in general, because in our culture, artists are, they're people who are thinking all the time about their art. They're creative. They're, not necessarily business minded. And so it becomes difficult to make sure that, people really understand what they're going into. But what's interesting is the last five, like about, I'd say the last 5 or 6 years, really with the rise of social media and having it become such an important part of everybody's life. I feel like artists have become more educated, or at least they're talking now more about aspects of the business that do matter. And I'm thinking, David, over your long career, I mean, certainly the major labels, but at one point, all labels were just tarred with this brush of, the whole point of a label is to take advantage of an artist and just, take all their money and give them the scraps or nothing at all, just in advance, and then never pay them again. So, we're in a new era, right? Where artists are able to come to the relationship with more knowledge. Have you guys found that to be the case for artists that you're working with?
Well, so much so to the extent that Tony we got together in 2012 and formed a nonprofit organization called the Consortium MMT, which deals with giving creative instincts to songwriters, record producers, and recording artists, in addition to giving them the principles of business processes that can help them be effective with that as entrepreneurs themselves. So in Memphis right now, we have 2 additional locations that has nothing at all to do with Made in Memphis Entertainment. It's a nonprofit that deals simply with informing and preparing young aspiring talents with many of the traits that they can use for their own personal success. We've got videos of participants in the program, supports videos of artists like Stevie Wonder, Earth, Wind and Fire, and Jimmy Jam, and the Valerie Simpson, the songwriter, Steve Jordan, the producers out of New York. We got 130 plus videos talking about being prepared were you to get an opportunity in the business, not only in a creative sense, but using some of the tools that others have used and develop your own individuality through that, but also understanding some of the principles that you'll need to understand aspects of the business. And so that is a serious part of what we've done in addition to the record company.
If I could add to that, and so Portia, the reason that was necessary was because it's actually the opposite of what you were asking, is that we are not seeing a more knowledgeable artist. We're actually seeing more naive and from the sense of uninformed, ignorant artists. And so the program was designed to educate, and that's been an amazing program. We also, in Made in Memphis Entertainment, are very big on education. And that's part of why wherever we set up operations, we also affiliate with organizations that are committed to the education of artists and writers, because what we realize is that there's a lot of propaganda out here. And we have people coming to us with simple issues, like they come to us and we're talking to them about publishing, and we realize that they don't understand that, because I said, well, who's your publisher? And they say, ASCAP. Or they come to us and they say, well, I understand that you have to own your masters, and I understand that you don't give up any of your publishing. I said, that's great. Do you know why? And they can't really articulate an answer. They just heard, some famous artist say something to that effect. And so we spend a lot of time trying to educate them, so it's not just cliches they're throwing out, but they truly understand. And so our experience has been that the vast majority of the people that we've interacted with had very little understanding of how the music business works, why certain things are important. I usually start out a discussion, a very simple discussion with some of the people that we talk to. If they're a singer-songwriter, I said, do you realize you're wearing 4 hats? And they said, well, what do you mean I'm wearing 4 hats? So I said, well, you're the writer, you're the publisher, you're the artist, and you're the label. Which of those hats do you want to give to somebody else? Otherwise, you have to be prepared to navigate this journey wearing all 4 hats. And so one of the things that I've learned from Laurie Jacobson, who's just been a great supportive of what we've been doing, one of the things she taught me was that a lot of people know only as much as what they were taught coming up in the industry. And so the music industry is full of people who don't really know much because the person that taught them didn't really know much. And so I think in this information age that we're in, we all have a responsibility to do a better job of educating the next generation, because the better educated the creatives are, the more conscious decisions they're going to be able to make, and they're going to be a lot more successful. But I think in a lot of ways, the artists and the writers are probably the only people who really enjoy transparency, because there's vested interest in so many other aspects of the industry to keep people ignorant. And so part of what we're doing, because we built this business to have a social purpose beyond just making profits, we understand that there is a real value in having an educated customer base, because now they can make good decisions and they can do the things that need to be done, so that we don't have to find ourselves really challenging them, because now they understand why some of the things that we're encouraging them to do make sense, because they are educated. And now it's a pleasure to work with them, because we're not trying to fight over things that should just appear like common sense.
You guys are like my new favorite people. I am so excited about everything that you're doing. It's so just fantastic, and it's across the board. I mean, that's wonderful that you're educating artists before they get too far into the business. You know, I have always felt with artists that, you know, I've always said to artists, if you don't take your business seriously as a business, somebody else will, and that's going to end up, and it can end up ugly for you.
Can I give a shout out to, we have some team members at our studio for you recording. Crystal Carpenter, who's the studio manager, and Devin Lester, who is her assistant. And these are people who, they go into the rooms with these artists and they're actually helping them fill out the split sheets, helping them understand metadata and why metadata is so important in getting paid. They're actually transcribing lyrics for these artists to make sure that the lyrics are being delivered at the time that these tracks are being delivered. And so this is the kind of commitment our people are making to the artists that come in, because they don't just do this as a job. They love the people that they're working with, and they're going that extra mile. And so the education almost seems seamless, because they're doing it while showing the service that you. So if you go into a studio record, and now you're interacting with the studio manager, and you're interacting with the engineers, and they're using that time together to educate. It's an amazing thing that we're seeing happening, and that's what we're excited about, because these are the kinds of people that are joining our organization and making it special.
That is truly fantastic. And I feel like what happened to me, I was a musician first, and then I got a little bit of success with my band. We got signed to a label and toured and did sort of the indie label thing. And I got bitten by the love of the music business. Once I started to understand it, I really got sucked in, because it's a fascinating business. There's so much to know. I mean, David, being a songwriter and understanding the publishing side, took me years to do that. You know, it's a complicated business and there's a lot going on. So, you know, I think that's wonderful, because I'm assuming that you're going to educate some people who turn out to be fantastic artists, and some people who turn out to actually switch paths and go into the music business because they understand it and love it. Which, what can we want more than that, is people who care about this business in this business.
I've had a great career as a writer, producer, but my greatest feeling that I have is doing it just simply that's impacting in a meaningful way on someone who have serious aspirations to be in this business. And I just get great joy in that. The nonprofit gives me a satisfaction with that, but just talking to people who have their heads in the right place as far as ambitions are concerned, and then giving them some kind of inspiration or motivation to go forward in the right kind of way, and seeing that they do is just like a hit record. That's another soul man to me.
It's fantastic. So, you know, we're having a conversation here today about diversity, equity, and inclusion. What do you guys think? You know, in my heart, I feel like the music industry has both a great opportunity and an obligation to lead the way in this field. You know, the modern music industry was built on the backs of Black musicians, the music of marginalized and oppressed people. So I believe that this is our duty to lead the way. Now that everybody seems to be taking this seriously all of a sudden. I feel like this is our job to lead. How do you guys feel? Do you feel like there's hope for this industry in being a leader?
I think clearly, to me, that I applaud the music industry as the more obvious example of sensibilities for the times that we're living in now, with wanting to see right things happen in the right way for people. And I think that there's a great deal of energy in that regard. You've got a lot of people in this business who really are cognizant of the fact that we should do more, we're about doing more, and we've done some things that are good. And so I, as Tony said about the shout out a minute ago, I'd like to shout out the credibility I think that some in this industry who are trying to do those constructive things deserve to have. There are a lot of positives potentially inside of some of these companies and the energies that they want to do a better thing for people.
Yeah, I think that it's going to take bravery, and it's going to take a long-term commitment, because nothing meaningful is changed overnight. The bravery comes in because it's going to force people to make tough decisions. I know that this is both executives of color and those who aren't, because oftentimes what they're finding themselves having to struggle with is my career going to be over if I take the risk to take a stand on these issues or with these individuals? I know that's certainly the challenge that many Black executives in the industry are finding themselves. If they hitch their wagon to this particular artist and take that risk, will it be the end of their career? And will that mean that they will not have the opportunity to shape the careers of others that comes behind them? And so I think that is a reality that a lot of people are struggling with, is what can I take a stand on and not lose my credibility? The other part of it being having the long-term commitment. The reason that's important is because it's much like if you've ever taken antibiotics, you start feeling better a lot longer. You start feeling better before it really has run its complete course. So they say, take these antibiotics for 2 weeks. Day 5, you feel great. But that doesn't mean you need to stop taking the medicine, because now the bacterial infection is going to come back stronger than it was before, because you didn't take the full course. And I think that that's kind of where we're going to find ourselves, is that over the summer, when everyone was forced to be in the house and we were forced to watch the ridiculous behaviors that were being partaken in by a variety of segments of this society. And it led to protests and unrest and a lot of that. And it did force a lot of people to look at things differently. Now that we're moving into the economy opening back up, and people are going about their daily business, and there are other things distracting people, there may be a feeling like things have gotten better. But no, it's just the spotlight has changed. And so what we have to be very careful about is that we don't stop before there's a cure, or stop before there's a full course of treatment, just because we're feeling a little bit better. And that is really, I think, the challenge here, is that if we're going to have meaningful, lasting change in this industry, we're going to have to push even beyond when we start feeling better. We have to keep pushing until we know that this situation has been resolved.
And that's really where I was coming from. Now that there's sensibilities to it, the actions now have to be even more dominant. But there's at least conversation saying that we should and want to do the better thing. And so I agree with you, Tom.
Yeah, and I feel like the bottom line for all of this is, I was interviewing Dina Lapolte for the keynote yesterday, and she said, when you walk into a room and there's 16 white male executives, it's enough already. It's enough already. We've gotten to the point where we have to just say, for so long that was just normal, the way things are. We don't have to do that anymore. We have a deeper bench in this industry than we've ever had before. We have more women, more people of color waiting in the wings, right under the C level. We're poised and ready to take power and to take responsibility for what comes next. And I feel like, you guys are such a fabulous model for the rest of our community. I'm so excited to talk to you and thank you so much for what you're doing. I can't wait till this pandemic is over and I can get in the car and drive to Memphis and see the studio and meet you guys in person. Oh my gosh.
We're definitely looking
Great.
forward to it. And the one thing I would just like to add, if I could, and that is, you know, when I was preparing that article that you referenced before, Portia, one of the things that kind of blew me away when I was looking at the gap in what's going on is that statistics, the data shows that women direct more than 83% of all consumption in the US. That's buying power and or influence. And I don't understand how anyone would want to build a business trying to focus in on their probable consumer. 83% of their probable consumer are women, and yet they don't want women to have any voice in how things are going to be packaged, delivered, and presented. It's like, how are you going to reach the audience you're trying to attract and you don't even give them a voice at the table? It just seems crazy to me.
And that's been, you know, I mean, that's what people have said about look at the music business. You know, we have Black executives, some Black executives in the hip hop world or in the urban world, but that the decision makers are not Black. And so if that's your consumer base, how is that an allowable or possible thing? You know, exactly as you're saying.
It's a problem. And it's part of what, if we start feeling better before we resolve that, it's not going to lead to enduring change.
Right. And I think that is our mission and our work for now, right? Is to make sure that the course of antibiotics is fully consumed.
Yes, that's right.
Right.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you guys. This was such a delight to talk to you. I am excited because we have another artist coming up for our break next that I hope you guys will stick around and watch. He's very impressive. And you know something, I want to ask one more question before we go, because I just love talking to you and I really am interested in this. You know, one of the things that this whole conversation has led to is a focus on genre, right? What do you guys think about that? And the perspective I'm taking on this is, you know, are some genres, is genre as a concept completely outdated? Is it just something of the past, and what we need to do is support artists in making the music that they're making and try to find the audiences that they reach without this pigeonholing of, oh, well, this is, you know, this is Black music, this is a hip hop audience, we know what that looks like. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You
I
wanna
think
answer
that,
Dave?
yeah, I think that one of the things that sometimes can be frustrating is when people are put up barriers because they want to label as this is urban or this is whatever. There are no new emotions. And so the creativity that comes from the soulfulness, if you want to call it that, of music from Blacks is it has communicative value to whoever. And so just to be able to open up the playing field and let people have access to hear all of the various kinds of music that comes from all the corners of this world is not a bad thing to do. And so when you lock other genres, lock people out because of what you perceive their particular direction to be, you may be locking out the next great that will be around forever. So I think that's not a good thing to have it where you just pigeonhole creatives and saying this is where you are because we believe this is where you are, rather than letting the world establish what they think they are.
And what we're seeing is genre bending releases. They are crossing genres because there are elements that would fall in a variety of different genres. I think the challenge we're seeing is that in a lot of ways, the genres are a way of being able to differentiate and categorize, because we know that rap music is basically the new pop music, and it's very difficult for people to embrace the reality that if they had, if they did not put everything into a particular chart, they would have to come to grips with the fact that the predominant music right now is music that's being created by Black people. And that becomes problematic when you have Black people at the top of all the charts. So you have to now find a way to differentiate so that you can come up with these false dichotomies to to give a different voice to things. The reality of the matter is, I think we just need to understand, as David pointed out, there are no new emotions. These emotions of emotionally connected music resonates across genres, resonates across demographics, and we just need to come to grips with that reality. It's the same classifications we're using to keep people apart by race. It's the same thing we're using to keep people separated by genre. Race, sexual orientation, gender, genre, they're essentially the same kinds of constructs that people are using to try to keep people separated and debating things that don't need to be debated.
Absolutely. And, I think every time I think of, an award show where there's best female something and best male something, I think, what's going to happen to you in 2 years when there's a huge transgender superstar?
Correct.
Where's your awards then?
Right.
So, yeah. So you're absolutely right. I love that. It's another way to keep us apart. Well, you guys have been so powerful and so inspirational. Thank you so much for being with me today. It's been a delight, and I look forward to talking to you more in the future.
Thank you so much,
Thank you,
Portia.
Portia. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Whew. Wow, that was amazing, you guys. I feel like I need to take a minute. There are no new emotions. I think we all need to write that down in a little book and hang on to it for the rest of our lives. There are no new emotions. All right. Speaking of emotions, we have the Portia Power Break coming up right now. We have an artist today who is bending genre definitions. And to introduce him, I'm going to introduce Brianna May, the brand partnerships and sports marketing for Portia, who has been part of our liaison team and has been amazing and helped us put this event together. So hello, Brianna, again. Welcome. Good to see you again.
Hello. It's good to see you as well. That keynote was amazing.
Wasn't that
Both
amazing?
speakers were awesome. Yeah, it was a great conversation.
So great.
So hi, everyone. Like she said, my name is Brianna May. I'm from the brand partnerships team at Porsche Cars North America, and we have a final performer for you for the Portia Power Break. Nashville-based songwriter Gabe Lee is becoming increasingly known for his ability to detail the intricacies of daily life, the small distinctions that leave some on the fringe, and the particulars that stick around long after a lover leaves. His second album, Honky Tonk Hell, finds Gabe diving deeper into themes that aren't far from his own life. Exactly what it meant to grow up in Nashville and what it means to still be a songwriter here. How it feels to be settling into adulthood and the monotony and occasional heartbreak it can contain. As one of the songwriters of Asian descent in Nashville's music scene, Gabe continues to drive change within the music industry. Please welcome Gabe Lee.
All right, hey folks. Thanks everyone for being here. Love the discussion, and just got a couple songs for you, making sure that we're all good. We're all good, right? Awesome. As Brown said, I'm from Nashville, Tennessee. My name is Gabe Lee, and I've been invited to play today. Just a couple songs. This first one is called People, and basically it's just a few observations I've made, and I bartend, so and I work for my dad, so these are just sort of things that I see and take note of and throw into songs. So please enjoy the song People. People tend to talk FBI and all. These days, you just don't know. Hidden cameras and the phones. Believe in what you like. Electric hypnotized. Playing dirty tricks upon your eyes. Don't let it get you down. Don't let it change your mind. We're gonna catch that train. We're gonna take a ride. We'll find a one-horse town. beyond the distant horizon, where time keeps on, stars go by. People tend to fight, schoolyards and the like, tiny broken fists, atom bomb abyss. Ain't no one seem to know just how far this all goes, for it's dark and troubled times out on the road. Don't let it get you down, don't pay them any mind. They built a great big wall, good thing you learned to fly. We'll send you right across, go tell the other side that time keeps on, stars go by, you know. Well, people tend to see ghosts, you and me, drifting through the fog, rabbits chasing dogs, pretending not to care, like there's nothing really there. We were only apparitions in the air. Don't let it bring you down, don't let them see you cry. Hop on a Greyhound bus, go on and dry your eyes into the outstretched arms under the mission lights. Time keeps on, stars go by. Time keeps on, stars go by. Time keeps on, stars go by. That's People, yo. Thank you.
That was awesome, Gabe.
Thank you,
Thanks so
friend.
much for performing. I'm sure everyone enjoyed that just as much as I did. So yes, I see a lot of clapping in the chat. That's awesome. So in the spirit of staying driven and driving change, just have a quick question for you. You know, how do you see yourself driving change and staying motivated during this time?
Sure. How do I see myself driving change? As sort of this being the son of immigrants in Nashville, Tennessee, and having been here all my life, I think it is it's a privilege and a responsibility to just ask in being in country music again. I think there's a responsibility to ask questions and ask the right questions in your lyrics, because at the end of the day, that's what people are going to pay attention to. The song is the engine of any artist's brand or material. At the end of the day, if the song doesn't speak to folks who are listening, then it doesn't matter. I think ultimately, at least for me, what you look like or what you represent. Really, the heart of the song is the most important thing. So I like to think that, similar to John Prine and Bob Dylan, that I ask questions with some of the songs that I have, or I ask listeners to weigh these questions that I bring up about what you stand for and where you come from and what you believe in, and what is love, and as cliche as that sounds. So currently I've stayed motivated pretty well. I mean, the lockdown was honestly for me, I did okay. I mean, I bartended on the side. We shut down for a while, but my parents are in Nashville. They live just down the street. I was able to, rest easy knowing that they were close by if anything happened. I basically just spent a lot of time with the guitar and continue to stay inspired. So, so I could create music that would continue to continue to inspire. Recently, I've gone back to work, and I love it because working keeps me grounded, and having a day job where you clock in and clock out and get your butt kicked keeps you grounded and gives you stories to tell. And ultimately, that's what a songwriter's job is. So.
Really love that. And I love what you said about using your music to kind of ask questions and really prompt people to think. I think that's awesome and really a way to kind of keep moving forward with the music industry being so impactful. I think that's a great way to start making that happen. So I think you have another song for us. So take it away. Thanks,
yes, ma'am.
Gabe.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. This one's called Babylon. I wrote it with my friend Vinny Palizzi, who's another songwriter here in town. It's about change in a different way. Basically, it's about moving on from a bad place. So I guess a change of scenery. As you all know, Babylon, or as you may know, Babylon, biblically is, like the medieval Vegas, right? Except worse. So we decided to title it Babylon because we're getting out of it. Here we go. I hung my soul out to dry, paid for my last glass of sorrow, and I hit the road, say goodbye. 'Cause it's a cold and a bitter feeling when you ain't got nothing left to lose, and you're picking up all the clothes off the pavement, drag your ties and pull a strong leather shoe. I'm giving up, burning it down. I've had one too many drinks in this town. So if you wanna find me, oh, if you wanna find me, I'll be moving on, packing up my bags and gone, getting out of Babylon. That's right. Many trials and tribulations, floods and fires have I seen. Heard tales of angels turned to demons, singing in choirs of broken dreams. Yes, all my running and dealing, all the love I've left behind, have formed a band to apprehend me. Yes, I'm told they'll be here shortly anytime. Oh, I'm giving up, burning it down. I've had one too many drinks in this town. So if you wanna find me, oh, if you wanna find me, I'll be moving on, packing up my bags and gone, getting out of Babylon. Oh, yeah. Oh, getting out of Babylon. Well, I'm giving up, burning it down. I've tried and tried, might have made it somehow, but if you wanna find me, if you wanna find me, I said if you wanna find me, oh, if you wanna find me, yeah, if you wanna find me, oh, I wanna find me, yeah, I wanna find me. Find me, find me, find me. Thanks for being here, y'all. Appreciate you. Much love. Peace out.
All right, now we have video. Hi, guys. That was awesome. Thank you to Gabe Lee. Follow him on everything. And thank you to Brianna, who is not with us anymore, but I appreciate her very much. She helped so much in putting this together. I'm gonna give you guys one more reminder to check out the Porsche Content Hub on our website, musicbiz.org. If you haven't yet, definitely check that out. All right, so this is the big finale of this week's programming. It is the Diversity Super Panel. I know that this is going to be a lot of people, but I think it's so important for us to have multiple voices in this conversation. I wanted to make sure we got everybody, all of our partners in the room to talk about it, and to talk about our topic, and we've added some other people as well. So hello, everybody. I think that perhaps you should just go ahead and put your cameras on. What I think I'm going to do is just ask each of you in turn to introduce yourselves and tell a little bit about your organization, just because that way we'll start off with everybody knowing who everybody is and what everybody does, and then we can get into our conversation. And I'm really looking forward to talking to all of you. So thank you again for all joining me today. We have a lot to talk about. This was an amazing series of conversations. So first, can we start with Nicole Barcelona, the president of Women in Music?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Portia, thank you so much for having us and everyone at Music Biz. This has been a really great few days of programming. It's just awesome. So I am the president of Women in Music. I'm also an artist manager in my real life, day to day, but Women in Music is a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and it was founded back in 1985. So we're in our 35th year of service. And our mission statement is a little bit long-winded, but the gist is that we are committed to educating, empowering, and advancing women and female identifying individuals in the music industry. And so we've taken kind of that mission from years past and kind of updated it over the past year or so to really make sure we're being more diverse and inclusive outside of just gender equity, and have a lot of exciting initiatives, and are so lucky to work with so many of you who are doing a lot of the similar work. So thanks again for having me.
Awesome. Jeremy Blacklow is the director of entertainment media at GLAAD. Hi, Jeremy.
Hi, Portia. Thanks for having me. Nice to meet everyone in Zoom world that's out there, fellow panelists. Noelle, I'm such a huge fan. It's like so cool. I'm like on a panel with you. GLAAD, if you're not familiar with us, is the world's largest LGBTQ media advocacy organization. We're going on our 36th year of existence, and we're one of the largest LGBTQ social justice advocate groups in the US. I'm the director of entertainment media. I'm based out in LA, where I oversee our work in Hollywood, in the film, television, music, and gaming industries. I've been with GLAAD full-time for about 3 years. I first interned with GLAAD in 1997 in New York City. So I've been with GLAAD, involved with GLAAD, and I've believed in GLAAD's mission for fair, accurate, and inclusive representation for a very long time now. And we have a long, wonderful history with Music Biz, and I'm thrilled to be here with all of you today.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeremy. Next up, Binta Brown, the founder of Oma Lily Project and the co-founder of the Black Music Action Coalition. Welcome, Binta.
Thanks, Portia, and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Binta Brown. One of the co-founders and the co-chair of the Black Music Action Coalition, in addition to managing artist and being a music executive. A little bit, I guess, about the Black Music Action Coalition is we were organized on Juneteenth of this year after the horrific murder of George Floyd. And we really have one purpose, which is to eradicate racism within the music business and broader society. It's great to be here, and it's really fun to be on a panel with so many friends, some of whom I've traveled to Israel with and haven't seen in a while. others of whom I've just met, but have been on panels with in the last 2 weeks.
Awesome, thank you. Next up, we have Saeed Crumpler. He is the buyer at Rasputin Music. Welcome, Saeed.
How you doing? Portia, thank you. Happy to be here with this great panel. I am the buyer for Rasputin Music, urban buyer. Been that for about 15 years. And now I am newly appointed Black Music Coordinator for Record Store Day. And part of my purpose is to search out and find Black-owned record stores, which I've been doing.
Yeah, we're super happy to have you, Saeed. Good to see you again.
Thanks.
All right, next up, Tracy Gershon, co-founder of Change the Conversation and 1 Million Other Things. Hello, Tracy.
People that I've admired, I don't know, like I said, some of them I know all of you by name, either by following you or if I've met you. I am a manager, just a publisher. I have a joint venture with the Brandy Carlisle that's just about to get launched, and an entertainment consultant. But my passion, I'm also a founding member of Nashville Music Equality that Shannon will talk about. I'm a member of She Is the Music, so you can see where activism is very important to me, and a co-founder of Change the Conversation, which myself and 2 other women founded 5-6 years ago in Nashville to talk about, to really level the playing field in country music, because women are so underrepresented. You know, it started out there and it really branched into just opportunities for women executives too in Nashville and in country space. Obviously, you know, again, we've been doing that. We kind of started that before Me Too and Time's Up, and it was just, the timing was crazy. We just really, all of us felt the need for action to be taken. And, you know, I can say with the stuff I do, especially with Nashville Music Equality and She's the Music, how important this work is. And it's probably, you know, it's definitely been my passion. It's hard work and we're all doing it, but somebody's got to.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tracy. All right, next up I have Grace Lee, the co-founder of the Asian American Collective. Hey, Grace.
Hi, Portia. Hi, super panel. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me. My name is Grace Lee. Day job is I'm the head of artist relations on the East Coast for YouTube. And as Portia mentioned, I am a co-founder of an organization called the Asian American Collective. We started earlier this year, and our purpose is to sort of unite all of the Asian Americans working in the music industry. There's more than you think, and actually mentor the next generation of young executives, artists, producers, managers, everyone coming up in the business, and really sort of be there for the next generation of people in a way that that myself and my co-founders didn't have as we were coming up. So that's me. Great to be here.
Thank you. All right, so joining us today is Erica Montez, the head of artist relations at SoundCloud. Hey, Erica, how are you?
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. As Portia mentioned, I head up the artist relations team at SoundCloud, #1 audio platform. And I feel like I sometimes get invited because I just love to share my experiences. I've had some really, really lucky and, you know, wonderful experiences in this industry. And I think it is my responsibility to give back. So always here to share.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you for joining us, Erica. I'm glad to see you. Next, we have Shannon Sanders, a 2-time Grammy Award-winning producer and board president at Nashville Music Equality.
Hi, Portia.
Hey, welcome.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's an honor to be here. Thank you to Music Biz for facilitating such a powerful conversation and doing so all week. Shout out to Portia as well. Just honored to be here on these panels with such esteemed panelists. Nashville Music Equality is a brand new organization. We were born after Blackout Tuesday. And shout out to Courtney Tony, who's now our executive director. But it was her idea. But just born out of the need for more of these kinds of conversations that we're about to have about diversity, equity, and inclusion in Nashville, in our music community in particular. And yeah, so that's who we are. That's why we're here, and we're brand new and we're growing really, really quickly because there's such a great need. So couldn't tell you how excited I am to be invited to this conversation. So thank you for having me.
Super happy to have you. Next up, we have Noelle Skaggs. She's the co-lead vocalist of Fits and the Tantrums and the founder of Diversify the Stage. Hey, Noelle, welcome.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for inviting me to this discussion. I'm really honored to be amongst all of you. I created Diversify the Stage, really with understanding my walk through this life as an artist and recognizing the lack of diversity that I'd been seeing across my 20-year career. And I really wanted to, put my best foot forward and using my platform and the network that I've grown over these years to really work towards action. So I partnered up with a gentleman by the name of Jerome Crooks, who created a platform called Never Famous that is specifically focused on hiring touring staff. And our work together is really focusing on making sure that this is a truly diverse population of individuals and professionals in the industry. And in addition to that, I also have an educational portion, which She Is the Music is a partner for, along with Music Forward, Sound Girls, and Women in Music. And we are working towards uplifting young people and getting pipelines into our live industry. So I'm touching throughout management and, throughout our stage crews and really trying to build a culture of accountability, for creating these opportunities for people of color, LGBTQ, women identifying and non-binary communities. And it's a collective effort. So I'm just happy to be a part of it.
Well, thank you for being here. And I love your background. You really look like you're in a little country garden there. And last but not at all least, Michelle Arkuski, the executive director of She Is the Music. Welcome.
Portia, thank you so much for having me. It's so great to be here with everyone. And obviously, I love this theme and this conversation. I let everyone know earlier that Noelle had the best background too. So that's also something to know. I am the executive director for She Is the Music. We were actually founded in 2018 after the USC Annenberg Inclusion Initiative study came out. And specifically, those numbers showed 2.5% female producers in the industry, 12% songwriters, females in the industry, and even what you see as female artists, Noelle can attest to, it's 20% female songwriters and artists in the industry. So She Is the Music was founded based off those numbers, and our mission and goal is to create more inclusivity, opportunity, equality for women in music. And we focus on all female songwriting camps for women to collaborate with one another and get to know each other. We have one of the largest global databases for females in music, and we also pride ourselves on mentorship as well as partnering with other amazing organizations like Women in Music, Diversify the Stage, and Change the Conversation, because it's a collective effort, like Noelle said. So really happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, you guys. Well, there are 10 of you, and I am, I want to hear from everyone. So I really want you guys to feel free to jump in and, speak, because everybody's perspective is really important, which is why we're having this panel. And that's why we made it extra long. So, I think we're going to get to everybody and let everybody speak as much as they want. And honestly, I would like to just shut up and let you guys talk to each other. I think that would be the most amazing, but I have to do my little job here. So, the music industry is unique in that artists share stories. That's what artists do. We just saw Gabe Lee, every artist that we love, they're telling stories through their art. And I think that, sharing stories is probably the most basic way of connecting with other people. I was really inspired to have this event when I saw a panel that Nashville Music Equality put on, where there were maybe 8 or 10 Black people who live in Nashville just talking about their stories, people in the music industry, just sharing their stories of their daily lives and the times that, they've been discriminated against and faced prejudice. And it was such an incredibly moving panel. It was by far the most moving panel I've ever seen, because it was just regular people talking about their regular lives. And so I wanted to ask everybody, because I think we've all been talking a lot to each other in the last few months since the murder of George Floyd. And I wanted to just have you guys tell me, like, what kind of changes have you started to see since you started sharing stories with people? Binta, do you want to start us off?
Sorry, I was muted. I apologize. I'm going to ask you to repeat the question, because I have to admit that I was distracted by a client just now.
No worries. I was just saying that, what changes have you seen since you started to share your story with other folks throughout this whole summer, as we've been starting to talk to each other about everything that's going on?
Sure. So, I mean, in terms of change, I think the most profound change is that we're all talking to each other, and not only that we're talking to each other, but that we're listening, and that we're giving space for the truth and authenticity of people's perspective and experience, as opposed to denying it. And I'm not saying that across the board that's changed, because certainly there are some people who only listened for a week. There's some people who listened for 2 weeks, and there's some people who listened for a month, and they thought that they were done. But there are enough people who have been listening, and enough of us who are now resolute in our desire to keep the conversation going. And what's nice is that I think that a lot of folks realize that this conversation is not intended to be threatening. It's not a threatening conversation. And so that's helping to facilitate some of the openness. So I think that that's really the biggest change, is just that we're all speaking to each other, that we have a panel like this, with people who represent so many different constituencies and interest groups. Each of us all fundamentally have the same interest. I guess the last thing I'll say is that the other recognition is that by solving the problems, whether you're talking about race in the music business, and by race, I want to just make sure that I'm being very clear. Obviously, coming from the perspective of the Black Music Action Coalition, we do think about inequities via the Black artists and Black music, Black executives, but solving the problems for one group of people that exist actually solves the problems for all of us. And there's an increasing recognition that by doing that, and by being open to different ways of approaching problems than we have in the past, that we actually increase the pie meaningfully for everybody. So I think it's been a really exciting time, but I caution everyone to remember that this is just the beginning. It's just a start, and it's a start of a marathon, and it's going to be a very long marathon. We're not going to get everything changed and rectified in 3 or 4 months. It took 400 years. It's been 400 years of oppression. It'll take a long time to unwind all of that.
I'll mention a little something about women in music and our experience. We have been around since 1985 and have really focused on that gender equity piece. And then in 2019, I was at South by Southwest, and Moira McCarthy, who's our vice president, said, you know what, there's a panel that a friend of mine is speaking on, come and see it. And it was Nikisha Bailey, who now co-chairs our Diversity and Inclusion Council, and Tiana Lewis, who's now at Apple. And they did a panel called Black Women in Entertainment, The Necessary Voice. And I have never seen a more well-attended panel. There was a line around the block, so to speak, in the convention center. And everyone in that room was electrified with this conversation. And it was the first conversation I had seen, and maybe that was my own fault, about specifically being a Black woman in music. And I had been on the board of WIM since 2013. I'd grown up, my parents were both in the industry, so I'd, grown up thinking like I was like on the fringes as a female in the business. And then I'm watching these women talk about their experience, and I'm like, this is a uniquely different experience for mine. And I thought I was on the outside, and how have we not come up with programming all of these years specifically for people who have a unique experience within that women in music umbrella? And so we held a diversity and inclusion panel in 2019, and I think it was like October at Mondo, just to like start having the conversation. And then our moderator, Camila Benjamin Fuller, said, next step, I said, what do we do now? Like, I feel like this is good, but what do we have to like keep going and actually do something? And she said, form a council, and then like make sure that internally you have more diverse people being able to weigh in. Like, it's not, you're not going to know, you're a white woman, your experience is yours. So we formed this council, and Chissy and Kemere is a co-chair with Nikisha Bailey. Chissy, I really threw her in. She spoke on that panel at Mondo, and I was like, she just blew me away. And I asked her to join us, and her and Nikisha now, we've been talking about it the last 9 months of pandemic, and then these brutal murders, all of this stuff has compounded. And now we're able to say, like, we were approached by this conference to support an all-female panel, and it was all white women. And so I said, we're happy to support, but we would love to like suggest a speaker, a moderator, a couple of speakers who are women of color. And they said, okay, great. Yeah, would love to get you involved. And Nikisha and Chissy, we were talking the other day, and they were like, first of all, why are we doing that work for them? And second of all, like, we're not going to support panels anymore and promote it if you haven't done the work on your own. Like, we have to not only keep having the conversation, but like demand action and accountability. And if you're speaking or asked to speak on a panel yourself, and you can see it's not diverse and inclusive, say like, sorry, I'm going to have to pass unless you can find other speakers to speak and bring other points of view. So I think those are two things that I've really learned. Like, you take the steps, and it's great to keep going, but we have to make sure we're like really demanding things, not only of ourselves, but of other people. And saying yes to things to support is great, but like, there's this power panel thing that they wanted us to support, and it's all white women, and young kids see that, and they see those names, and it's great that there are women and that's one panel of programming on their conference, but I don't want young kids seeing that it's only white women. Like, that's the message that I got when I was growing up, was that we're panels of only white men. And so we have to kind of break that cycle and make sure that each one of us in the industry is demanding that of everyone we work with.
Yeah.
I want to sorry, Tracy, go for it.
I was going to say, when you talk about conversation and the panel that you were moved by, Portia, I mean, I think that's where it starts. I know when we started changing conversation, we really created a safe space for all these women to first find each other and build a community and talk about, they found a safe space to talk about their issues in country music and being a woman and being underrepresented. And then we took that and with national music equality, it was starting out with a conversation, starting with a safe space for people to talk. And I will say that I've learned more from my board members too, as again, I always think I'm the most evolved person in the world, and I'm learning I am not, and I'm okay to admit that, but I have at least this safe space where I can say, hey, how does this affect you? How's this? And I'm learning as I go. But it truly does start with conversations, building community. Like I said, the women that I can just speak more to change the conversation, because we've been doing it for 5 or 6 years, and women in music, all these, and She Is the Music. We develop this, women or people of color have to feel like there's a community and a safe spot, and it's okay. I feel like right now it's okay to talk about this. Again, we have to put it into action, but it all starts with that conversation.
Noelle, did you?
Yeah, I was gonna touch on what Nicole mentioned as far as boards are concerned when we're talking about diversity and inclusion councils, and we're talking about boards that want to see equality across the industry, and you're looking at a board that is literally the same spectrum of the mosaic. How are these conversations and these plans happening without having people in the room that are directly affected by the issues? That's something that I actually talked about on my social media platform this morning, about doing the work and having the intent, not just the concept, because it's really important to walk the walk that you're talking about. Otherwise, everything is just going to stay completely the same. You know, I could have easily gone into Diversify the Stage and have it had been just about my own community. We have enough amazing, you know, uplifting organizations like BMAC, Roadies of Color, like, you know, all of these organizations that I've recently been introduced to that are doing this work. I wanted to collectively bring in all of these organizations that have started and pull our resources together towards this change, because I recognize the same issues that my Asian friends are having. I'm having, you know, the same issues that my Latinx community, you know, members are having. You know, we're kind of circling around the same conversations. So it's really important, even in this individual work that we're doing for, you know, our narrow focuses or whatever it is, that we are communicating with each other and that we are trying to help one another. Otherwise, it's going to be the same conversation 5 years from now, someone feeling excluded from the dialogue, you know. So we really have to take it upon ourselves and make it our responsibility to do that work, you know, even when it's hard, you know. So I'm actually glad that, Nicole, that you brought that up, because I have seen a lot of boards and it's one spectrum, and I'm just not sure what they're trying to accomplish if you're not being inclusive with your board members, you know.
Yeah, I was gonna just say that one of the things that I think is great is it is giving a voice to the voiceless in a sense, and the ignored. One thing that I do notice is, you know, with the new position that I have calling Black-owned record stores, when I call them, they're like, nobody has reached out to me in 20, 30 years. You know what I'm saying? And so, you know, when you talk about the forgotten, they are the forgotten. And one of the things that we need to do is figure out, how are you doing, one, and how can we help? You know what I'm saying? Because that's really what they need, is help. And so I think one of the things that's cool right now is it seems like more people are open to helping, and that's always a good thing.
Well, I think it's clear that the status quo isn't working, right? I think that that's suddenly gotten thrown into focus. And I think this summer was also, you know, I mean, Tracy, you say you think you're the most evolved person. I felt like I was the most evolved person. And then over the summer, I feel like even more scales fell from my eyes. And one thing that's amazing is I think once the scales fall from your eyes, you can't go back unless you're doing it willfully. Because once you've seen the injustice, you can't walk away and be like, oh, okay, you know, you have to make a decision. Am I okay with that, or am I not okay with that? And if I'm not okay with that, what are we going to do about that? Well, Grace, I wanted to, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I just want to speak to that first question, but I was going to say, you know, one of the things that I've noticed since we started as National Music Equality, one of the things that I've noticed is just the people around me, the people that I come into contact with, the Tracys, the Beverly Keels, you know, the people that I know that are affected by my stories. You know, a lot of these things are, you know, it was a powerful moment for Beverly, who's a great friend of Tracy and ours, and she's a board member of NME as well. Just how she is moved over and over by me telling her that I have to go to a track to exercise or to jog or to walk, just because I don't want it to be misunderstood while I'm walking around the neighborhood. You know, like I'm walking around the neighborhood, but these people don't know I got 2 Grammys. They don't care anything about that. That's not what they see when they see me walk by their house. And so it just never dawned on them, because they know me. They know me from being active in our community. You know, they know me for being a contributing citizen. So it wouldn't even cross Tracy's mind that I would walk down her street and be casing her house, but because she knows me. So that's what's been, that's what we found to be quite impactful, is just the profound effect it seems to be having on our friends. And then from there, with everybody saying, then what? What are you going to do? Once you've been convicted, once your heart has been pricked, now what?
And I think it's so important to remember what Binta said, is that, man, this is going to take a while. You know, sometimes we've been, again, even with change of conversation 6 years, and we've made a little bit of progress. But you know what? I have to constantly remind myself, this is long term. This is not going to happen overnight. And we're such an ADD kind of industry anyway. And I always say, I hope this is just not the trendy thing now. I mean, it's not for me, it's not for any of you here, but we know that it is for some, and we just have to keep fighting because it is going to take a while. I just have to keep telling myself every day, this is not an overnight fix, not when it's taken this long to get here.
And I think what you said, Shannon, is so interesting. It's like, I think for a lot of people who don't experience racism, or people who don't experience sexism or aren't like out of that center of that wheel of power in our culture, like they don't realize day to day those injustices. And so my friend, Dr. Regine Diaquach, who's she's associate dean of diversity at Columbia, she always says to me, like, you have to use your power in your body to change other people's perspectives and to try to, like, you know, make that change in an accountable way. Like, me as a Black woman, I can't do what you can do to influence your circle, right? So like, you have to be in your own body and use the power, whatever it is, whatever body you're in, whatever people see you as, use that. And that's like your responsibility. So for all the people in the music industry who do not face racism or sexism or any kind of discrimination, like, it's not the responsibility of women to make changes for women. It's not the responsibility of Black people to change their circumstance. It's the people who are not discriminated against. That's your responsibility to change the outcomes for everyone else. Like, you have to take responsibility for that.
If I could just jump in, I know that Grace once was called upon actually, but and it's just to clarify a little bit. You know, it's so much. It's not so much changing the outcomes for others, but what is really necessary, from my perspective, is an internal change for every single one of us, right? Because there's no. We don't need to. I don't need to solve anybody else's problem. Like, the problem is with the person who is racist, sexist, homophobic, whatever their issue is. The solution is for them to, through awareness or otherwise, or just humanity, to become aware of how they are, the fears, that they have are resulting in oppression. I mean, and keep in mind, like, for example, like right now, like a lot of us have this week been talking about what's happening in Nigeria. And it's the same thing where, there is an oppressive force. It's understanding where that oppressive force is coming from. And then the people who are the oppressors are the ones who need to change for themselves. And then things do get better for everyone else. And hopefully, I think those who are oppressed, we have to go through some changes too. And what that is for us to, at least in the United States, to wash off, the embedded white supremacy, the embedded misogyny, like the embedded, like, things that affect our minds and the way that we think about things. Because it's not so much that we're victims, but we've come up in the same culture, in the same system that has made us and led us to believe this. So I just wanted to jump in with that. And one other comment, in terms of, like for what Tracy was saying, like, this is a moment, not a movement. Part of what I think all of us who are involved in this, like, regardless of what our position is, whether we're advocating for women, whether we're advocating for Black folks, for Asian folks, for the LGBTQ community, whatever it is, for a religious community, whatever it is, we have to realize that there will be backlash, and there will continue to be backlash. Like, every time we make giant strides, there's going to be backlash. And so it's not just that it's going to take a long time for us to make the changes from where we, have been at the beginning of this summer going forward, but it's the change in us, because we're going to have the strength and the stamina and the wherewithal to deal with the inevitable backlash. This backlash that we're experiencing right now is particularly bad and particularly gruesome, but it's always been a series of backlashes every time we make progress. So to be prepared for that and cognizant of that, and to dig in, for the long haul. Sorry for speaking for so long, but
you're always dropping gems, Binta. It's fine. I always love to hear what you have to say. I just want to get Grace in here because I know she has to go pretty soon.
Hi.
Hi.
Was there something specific that you wanted me to speak on, or?
Well, I watched your guys' roundtable yesterday, the Asian American Collective roundtable, and it was such a powerful panel because everybody was sharing their stories, the places where they connected, the places where they'd had similar experiences, like being the children of either immigrant Asian parents or, parents who are still living in Asian countries. And, I love the part about everybody was explaining to their parents, like, no, mom, I really do have a real job. And the music business is a real job. It was great. But I mean, to me, to watch you guys talk about that was so powerful because it's like, it's so important to have a support system and to share stories. Like I was saying, when you share stories, people learn and you gain power from sharing.
Oh, I totally agree, Portia. And I think that, it really was the experience of sharing stories and how our organization even formed in the first place, right? So the Asian American Collective, like I said, was started earlier this year. It was myself, Caroline Yim from CAA, and Zena Koda, who when we started was at Atlantic Records and is now at the North Face. And, we sort of came together just sharing stories of what it was like to come up in the music business as all sort of being kids of immigrants with immigrant Asian parents and having to sort of like explain like, no, mom, I'm not going to be an engineer or a doctor or a lawyer. Like, I'm actually going to try to pursue something in a creative field. And yes, it's a thing. And I think I can do it, So it was those sort of shared stories and experiences that really brought us together. But I think another part of it is that, we all were saying that as we were, each individually coming up in this industry, we didn't have role models that looked like us, right? We were lucky to have really, really good mentor figures, a lot of really good people that helped us all respectively build our careers. But, it wasn't folks that sort of had a shared experience with us, So I think that for us, part of our feeling as we've gotten to the place where we are in our careers now is that we have a responsibility, right? And like to sort of be those figures that we lacked as we were coming up, and to encourage young Asian Americans to pursue creative industries as they choose their careers, and maybe help give them some of the advice that that we didn't quite get. So the sharing stories part, I think, is so important. And if I could just speak briefly to changes of things that have happened this year, and especially from the summer, when we started out, yes, Binta, for sure. We really were so self-focused, I think, right? To be honest, because we didn't have this, a strong Asian American sort of representation in the music industry. And we wanted to come together to build that, right? But I think that as, this year has gone on, we've really seen how much we owe to other communities that have come before us, right? Even like how much we owe as Asian Americans to African Americans, just historically, right? Some of the rights and stuff that we have were fought largely by folks that came before us. And so I think that as a result of that, we also have a very distinct shared responsibility to our Black brothers and sisters in the continued sort of struggle against racism in America and in the world. And, we stand for that, and we, encourage all of our members to speak up and speak out and really join forces with other organizations and people that share our passion and our feelings about this. So,
Grace, that was a very powerful statement. I have never heard anybody say that. I've never heard any other ethnic group say that to Black people or about Black people. Like, that was extremely powerful, and thank you for saying that.
Thank you, Shannon. I think like, race is a, sorry, go ahead.
No. Just to add on, just so when you answer, you can speak to this too. Is that, and tell me at the same time, is that, or when you say that that is the sentiment, is that something that people know and acknowledge by and large, and we just don't know it?
That the Asian American community owes a lot to the Black community.
Yeah.
You know, I think that there is a segment of folks, especially maybe second generation Asian American, but second generation and beyond, right? So not necessarily the folks that that immigrated here themselves from Asia. It's the children of those folks. It's the us, right? That really sort of like examine the issues and examine the history. And because we have the privilege, unlike our parents, of, you know, our parents, you know, a lot of them came to this country, struggled, right, to build a life and build a better life for their children. We as Americans now don't have a lot of that burden, right? So we have the ability to sort of look and examine the history and look at the history of this country, right? This is our country too, right? So we look at the history of this country and look at where are the inequities, right? What are some of the battles that other folks had to fight in order for us to even be here, you know? So these are the things that I think that a lot of us of a second generation are really looking at and trying to educate each other on. I mean, that's a big part of what we're trying to do too, is to educate and to acknowledge those people that really fought for us. So long-winded answer.
So look, not to hijack this. This is crazy intriguing to me, and I know it's a long talk, but how is it though that you guys can come here and in 2-3 generations be booming and have businesses, and here we are, have been here hundreds of years?
Because we don't have 400 years of oppression against us. That's why.
Talk to it, Grace.
It's because we don't have a dominant white power pitting our communities against each other.
Ooh.
That's what it is.
Good to meet you, Grace.
Good to meet you.
Well, and that,
Grace Lee has always been a real one and will always be a real one. And if anybody didn't know, now you know.
I can't wait to work with you, Grace. I'm going to be reaching out.
No, please do.
Probably tomorrow. So look out for me.
I'm ready.
Well, this is a good point at which I know Grace has to go. So thank you for being with us, Grace. We have to take a little break. We're going to just take a few-minute break and let everybody go to the bathroom or something, and then we're going to come back. This is the first hour has gone really fast, obviously. And when we come back, I want to talk about sort of what Grace and Shannon were starting to bring up a little bit, which is this idea of scarcity, right? Because I think all of us have experienced that, the notion that, oh, I mean, certainly country radios, they write it down on paper and say it. There's one spot for a woman, you know? We have a roster of 1,000 white guys who are all wearing boots and hats, but there's one woman and that's it. But everybody else has the same. You know, scarcity has been used to keep us apart and to pit us against each other for years. So I want to talk about that when we come back. So let's take a quick break, everybody. You can turn your cameras off. And I'm going to encourage everybody, all of our panelists, all of our attendees to go check out the Porsche Content Hub at musicbiz.org. And we will be right back. All right, well, I want to hear from Jeremy because I haven't heard from you yet.
Sorry, I've been so silent. I've just been enjoying hearing everyone else speak. Yeah, I'll talk a little bit. I'm so enthused and excited by how many artists are coming out now, especially at the beginning of their careers. I mean, I was that kid in the 80s watching MTV like 12 hours a day and like trying to find the queer artist and looking at David Bowie and Annie Lennox and wondering and super confused. And I think we're going to look back at 2019, 2018 and look at the impact of, for example, Lil Nas X coming out as a new artist at the peak of his career. I mean, at the beginning of his career with the #1 song of all time coming out of the closet when he did and say that was revolutionary. It's really exciting also, I think, to see the amount of genres where artists are now coming out in. I mean, for me, the most exciting artists of this year, and I don't mean to discredit anyone else, are probably Chica in hip hop and Orville Peck in country music, who are working in genres where you typically don't see queer representation and just doing the most incredible work that is mind-blowing and creative and brilliant. And we have a long way to come, but you know, I was watching The Voice last night or 2 nights ago, and there was a Black gay opera singer on, and I was thinking about that, and I was like, man, it was just 10 years ago when Adam Lambert couldn't come out on American Idol, you know, and to think how much has changed in 10 years for queer artists and queer musicians. And still, of course, we all know we have a long ways to go, and a lot of door opening to do. We still don't have a trans superstar in the music world, and I want to see that happen. I mean, we've got, you know, Kim Petras in pop music and Laura Jane Grace in punk, who are making big names for themselves. But we did this awesome panel 2 days ago, and we had Peppermint on, and she just came out with this incredible album, and I want to see her be huge, and I want to see Shia Diamond and Mila Jam have careers that blow up, and elevate trans artists now to the place where LGB artists have gotten. And I think that, you know, the LGBTQ community, as we all know, is very intersectional. And we, you know, when you really talk about that word of intersectionality and how key that is, you know, I am a cisgender gay white man, but, you know, at GLAAD, you know, what I want to see is more elevation of trans artists and more elevation of queer artists and genres that aren't represented right now to really shine through. And I'm just sort of spitballing and saying a bunch of things. So if anyone else wants to chime in and join me with thoughts, I'd love to have a conversation about it.
Yeah, I love that, and I completely agree. It's interesting because I've recently had more conversations about even the diversity as it relates to artists and being signed to alt record, you know, labels, and the lack of diversity that is even happening there, which I think has really pushed young people to not even deal with record labels, you know, because we don't even have the representation. You know, looking at fan bases and how can we start getting more diverse fan bases, you know. I think I'm really in an interesting and unique, Sirius talking to me, sorry. You know, unique place because I'm in a band that is pretty much, it's all white guys. I'm the only Black woman. I'm also in, you know, alternative pop space. So I have a very clear view of even just the lack of diversity in our own crowds. You know, it's like, how are we not reaching, you know, other people of color and, you know, and this side of the industry, you know, like I ponder on this all the time, like, are the A&Rs just not finding these kids? I'm looking at Elektra Records, you know, on a big topic of the lack of diversity there in artists. I'm talking to my managers, like, how can we get more people of color as openers for us? You know what I mean? So I love that you kind of brought that up because I have to look at the whole spectrum of the industry and where the holes are and how can I help? You know what I mean? What more can I do? Being the person on stage who half the time is so disconnected from that. You know, I'm disconnected from the talent buying. I'm disconnected from the people that are booking. I'm disconnected from, you know, the venue owners and the general managers. I get hired for the gig, and that is as far as my knowledge goes. And that is really the education for most of us artists. We want to get out there and do our job, you know, but it's also hard as a person that is an activist to feel like that's okay. You know what I mean? To feel like this is the normal thing in this industry. So I don't know if anybody has any ideas there, any thoughts on that?
I think something you just said, Noelle, is just you're, you know, giving that spot to people of color, like an opening spot, little things like that. I know Brandy Carlisle, when there was no pandemic, when she was touring, she called and said, I really want to shine a spotlight on these up and coming women who are having such a hard time in country music, and I'm going to go out and open for them. And on her own dime, she opened with them acoustic guitar, so she would bring her fan base to it. And it was very selfless. It was very authentic. It wasn't about press or anything. And I think those little things mean a lot, and anytime you can give that kind of opening spot or give that leg up to anybody, that's really helpful. That's just one thing, and you're already saying to do it.
And mentorship.
Mentorship, yeah.
Justin Tranter, who serves on GLAAD's board of directors, and who I'm sure many of you know, is mentoring trans artists. He is bringing Shia Diamond up and teaching her to be a superstar. And while they write songs for Demi Lovato and all the pop stars that they write songs for, and that mentorship is everything. Opening the door for the person waiting to step through.
And like making sure that the people in those decision-making positions are more diverse. So like making sure that the talent buyers, like everything you're doing, Noelle, with Diversify the Stage, like making sure those people who are booking the shows are thinking about that more, that the promoters, the agents, like all of those people are all on the same page about like making more diverse bills, making sure all of that comes together.
And that's an important point you guys are making, Noelle, especially it's like what has to happen is when we are given power, when diverse people are given power, we must actually use it and not just fit into the slot that we think is the polite and nice, oh, I have this now, so I have to be a good person and just go through the motions, because I think it was so funny what you just said, because I'm like, I have worked with so many white male artists who are just so demanding across the board. They can decide what kind of drinks are served at the bar in a venue. They can demand a certain, type of person in security or not a certain type of person in security. Take the power that you are given, right? And I think that's a great lesson for all of us. And this actually just happened in our little break. I went and I looked at my email, and I'm supposed to be on a panel next week for Women in Music, not your Women in Music, Nicole, but just about women in music, which you guys then stepped in to sponsor and noticed, hey, there's no women, there's only one woman of color on this whole panel. Let's get someone else in here as a person of color. And I'm like, oh my God, look she just did it in the last 5 minutes. You just made that happen. And that's fantastic. But we have to do that. It's like, if I get on a panel that's all women, but they're all white, I need to say something.
I also think that we have to make sure that we're not making any of this, rocket science. Like it's not really all of that challenging. We just need to challenge ourselves to think differently and to reject all of the different stories that we've been telling ourselves, So for example, without going too deeply into strategy, I represent a gospel artist. It's really interesting because gospel is Black, contemporary Christian music is white. It's the same Jesus Christ. I hate to tell everybody, but it is. And so to me, it's not like a crazy idea for us to be doing collaborations with CCM artists. And guess what happens when we do collaborations with CCM artists? We get exposed to their fan base. They get exposed to our music. We start, we have told ourselves a lie that we're different from one another. Now, we might have distinct cultures, and those cultures are enhanced and they live and they thrive whenever we have the opportunity to appreciate the authenticity and the truth of who we each are, right? That's why, a successful interracial marriage, is about, that person really sees the other person, or they see one another and they celebrate their culture, and it amplifies it. It gets shared, it gets experienced and loved by more people. But now we've been, we've taught ourselves recently to be possessive and to be insular and we've just created all of these fictions for ourselves. So we just need to stop doing that and start looking for the opportunities, because the reality is that there's no reason why I was laughing earlier in the first part of our panel because I was like, yeah, you know, for a while I didn't realize there were many other Black women managers because, you know, I look at groups like Women in Music and I look at groups that She's the Music and the artists with whom I've worked, you know, and their collaborations with other folks, it hasn't involved Black women usually on the other side. Turns out there's a whole lot of us, you know, so it's just about really choosing to, like, somebody said it earlier, take the scales off our eyes, keep them off, stop telling ourselves all of these different fictions that are comfortable, and allow ourselves to be a little bit uncomfortable. This is not complicated. You know, like the idea of bringing lots of different people together on a stage is not complicated. And we've made it unduly complicated because of our fears and because of our whatever, our internal racism, sexism, whatever it is. But it's not really that hard. And actually, when we think about music as this just extraordinary language, this extraordinary means of expression and communication that has the power to bring all of us together, the music industry in the 60s and the 70s, I actually think did a somewhat decent job of there being a diversity of voices coming to the stage, working together and collaborating with one another. I would actually also further argue that that happened in the 80s too. It seems to only be very recently where we have these really big silos that we've all been subscribing to. So like, we just need to unsubscribe, you know, like we do it with junk mail. This is junk mail. We should unsubscribe. And the last thing that I'll say on this is that, you know, rather than being about diversity, Noelle's heard me say this, Nicole has heard me say this, Portia's heard me say this, like everybody here who I know has heard me say this at some point. What we should be aiming for is integration. Because when we integrate, that's when we're celebrating the equality of all people, regardless of their background, their gender, their sexuality, their preferences, their religion, whatever it is. It should be about integration, equality, and leveling the playing field, because when things are diverse, they're still not equal. You know, they're still actually quite separate, to be honest, because we start telling ourselves another lie, which is that, okay, we need more Black executives. So does that mean that we're talking about expanding our Black music department? No, it means that we need more Black executives, because it turns out that Black people love rock, love country, love all different kinds and forms of music too. And that Black executives and Black managers and Black artists are capable of being in a variety of different genres, just as anybody else is capable of being in a variety of different genres. So to me, it's about integration, 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 not losing yourself, which is what white supremacy would have us do, right? White supremacy and misogyny would say, lose your identity as a woman, lose your identity as a Black person, you know, lose your identity as an LGBTQ person so that you can blend in. It's about integrating and bringing the essence and the fullness of who you are and then being treated equally as that. So I'm done preaching. Just had to jump in.
Erica, did you want to say something?
No, I was just thinking back to the beginning of this year. And as a Latina that has been working in this industry for almost 20 years, if you really think about where 2020 started for someone like me, I looked at the Super Bowl where it had two female Latina superpowers doing a halftime show. And it was the most incredible thing to see them. And by the way, Shakira's album probably got me through many breakups while I was in college. And then happens, and then you get to the end of May and it's the murder of George Floyd. And all these things came to a head for me because you really had to face yourself and where you came from. And I kind of wish Grace was still here because she brought up so many points that were very similar to the Latinx community. But I had to face a lot of things that I was taught that I heard when I was growing up, right? So that we all come in different, you know, in different shades and color, and where there's Afro-Latinos, there's, you know, white passing Latinos, and this was a big challenge that really had to be confronted this summer. And you know, as much as I have worked in music and in a very diverse music space, you know, started out at Def Jam and have moved on to, you know, many other times, but now at SoundCloud, where it's a predominantly male hip hop community, I really had to sit there and be like, what is my responsibility here and who do I have to correct? Because I was brought up with a lot of things. You know, they were like, oh, you know, you have to marry up or this or that. And I'm like, it's my responsibility now to correct that behavior within my own family, within my own people. So this year has been full of highs and lows and a lot of facing myself and how much responsibility I have to my community and to the people around me. So
I'll just say on that point, I think that the thing that I've learned most in the last year was I have a 3.5-year-old daughter, and I like hammer hard on the feminism at home, you know, like really hard. Like Ruth Bader Ginsburg, she like can barely talk, but she says her name. She has little Ruth Bader Ginsburg action figures everywhere. But I had really, and I talked to her very frankly about things. I really, you know, we talked about George Floyd. I really like maybe overdo it with reality with her. But what I realized I hadn't been doing was I've been kind of pitching the like, we're all the same, our skin color is different, or our hair is different, or, you know, someone loves someone and someone loves someone else. And underneath it all, we're all the same. But what I realized was so wrong about that is like, we're not all the same. We're all different. And that's the positive, right? So like, instead of teaching her that we're all the same, I was like, wow, I've been saying this, but like all the books we're reading are like whitewashed stories and none of them celebrate diversity really, you know? So we got this book that Steph Curry wrote about her young daughter seeing a painting of Michelle Obama at the museum and celebrating her Blackness, you know, and her brilliance and all of the things that she is. And I realized that was my biggest mistake, is like I had been trying to be like, no, we're all the same. And it's like, no, we need to celebrate those differences in our household, because then when you leave this household, hopefully you and your peers eventually one day won't think that like there's no such thing as color. You're going to celebrate what's beautiful about each person and not like try to whittle everything down to that we're not different, which is not the point.
Yeah, I think so many people go, oh, well, I don't see color. Well, you should see color. You know, it's that thing. It's like you learn like, no, you just embrace, you know, we all are different. I think that's a really good point, Nicole.
Yeah. And it's bullshit. You do see color because Shannon has to go to a track to run. So
right, exactly. Yeah.
I think it's one of the worst things that you or that one can say, because it doesn't acknowledge any of the issues at all.
Yeah, one thing I was gonna say is you know, we also have to make it uncool to not be diverse and inclusive. You know what I'm saying? And I think because one thing I saw a report where it said diversity in film equals more money. And so at the end of the day, if it's money they want, which is what the industry built on, make it diverse and inclusive. And we have to apply pressure and make it uncool. Like, you don't have any diversity here. Like, I can't rock with you. I can't do a show here. I can't support you here. You know, and so if we do that and apply pressure, then we can really bring change also. Not just with ourselves, but apply pressure to those who are not being inclusive and not being diverse.
And to that point, you know, one of the things that we talked about on our panels and a segment that we've heard from is the minority fan of country music, right? And what was crazy is to hear stories of Black fans, and just to pivot, you know, and everything you guys have been saying, so powerful, so true, you know. And then when we do get these people to these spaces and say, okay, we identify you, we invite you, you know, we invite you to open this show. We invite you, you know, I invite you to share my stage, and this common space being this venue. There's a venue here in town that I know one of the bouncers is the guy is this big, huge skinhead. You know what I mean? So who's he protected? You know what I mean? What's really going on? And so that's one of the things that we've been talking about too, is then when they come, then what? Protecting people in these spaces too, being prepared, and what you guys have been saying about accountability. As a venue, are you prepared to make this a no-hate zone, to hold people accountable when they come here and act upon their isms? And that's the thing. These are the people. That's one way we can immediately, you know, start to demand this equality and these mutual spaces. So I just want to put that out there.
Yeah, that makes me think, Shannon, of, you know, there was a band that of two, I think they were sort of gender non-binary guys who made a big splash because they demanded that all the venues that they played have bathrooms that were non-binary, that were available to anybody. And you know, that band ended up having kind of a bad end, but that just shows, you know, Noelle, I was saying to you, it's like these two white guys had no problem trying to demand that all the venues on their tour route change their bathroom policy, you know?
We know of a couple artists that same thing, and this is, we're hoping this will even get bigger, but would not play any venue that had a Confederate flag showing. And there was a lot, and they were just, you know,
Exactly.
a white artist just saying, I'm not playing. If you have a Confederate flag up in the, not going to be there, and said that and put that in his writer, which I think.
Or don't let people in displaying tattoos of hate, t-shirts, you know, merch brands of hate. That's another, don't let those people in the venue. If people show up for a show, you can't show up displaying symbols of hate.
You know, we need to think about, you know, there's I think, particularly during the pandemic, there's been like a rash of psychology advice, social psychology proliferating through Instagram and Twitter, and a lot of it tells us, you know, like, how do you deal with an abuser? Like, how do you deal with a narcissist in your life? We should take some of that advice, you know, that we use in interpersonal and individual context, and we should apply it, you know, to racism, sexism, homophobia, like all of these different things, and use the advice there too, right? Which is that, because at the end of the day, you know, there is something that is disordered about having such a profound fear of somebody's difference, that you treat them differently, that you choose to treat them differently, or you don't want to hear them or interact with them, or you want to oppress them, right? And so, you know, like to the point that Shannon was just making, it's like, if there are things that you wouldn't tolerate in a relationship with somebody, then why would we ever tolerate it? You know, like in terms of our different groups and relationships with the people who are acting badly, you know, who have the problem. Like we have to learn that the micro and the macro, in some senses, have the same sets of solutions, and not be willing and be relentless in understanding that, so that we can continue to grow a culture of love where the culture of love actually wants to grow. And it does want to grow, you know, it does want to be there. So just one other thing I'll say, and, you know, I know that there are a couple of people on this panel who haven't spoken much, so I'm going to stop speaking so much. But I want people to see me as a Black woman, you know, like that it doesn't mean that I don't have the same heart and the same mind and the same everything else. I want people to see me as a Black woman. I don't want people to see me as a Black woman and then use that as a reason to treat me any differently, whether it's to favor me, you know, from a quota filling perspective, or whether it's to deny me certain rights, or whether it's to stereotype me. You know, like, I don't want to be seen in a way that stereotypes me, because stereotypes are inherently delimiting. And I want people to be conscious of the stereotypes that they're bringing to play whenever it is that we're all interacting with one another, and to challenge themselves on those bases. But I want to be seen for who I am, because that's part of what makes me me. You know, my experience and my culture is part of what makes me me. And so, you know, I just wanted to jump in with that, because I know that we were earlier in the conversation, we were talking about the, you know, diversity, seeing one another, like making it cool. I think all of us want to be seen for who we are. And then when we're seen for who we are, we're allowed to be who we are, right? And that's really, really important in terms of achieving dignity.
And
I
one,
talked
oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Saeed.
One last thing I wanted to say, just about music. Music has always tore down barriers. I remember I was watching a documentary about, I think it was James Brown. It was a concert where they had split the audience up, half white, half Black on sides, and they were dancing, and they ripped down the barriers and started dancing between themselves. So I feel like music has always been a leader for change. And so just with that being said, I think, that's one reason why we have to continue to fight for diversity and inclusion on all levels, because I think music is where different races, different people from different backgrounds get together at one spot and enjoy something that they all love equally. So to me, that's why it's such a, so important to me.
You're absolutely right. And I think, Binta is always so eloquent about this, but I think we have to question what we're told. And one of the ways the culture keeps us apart is this, scarcity mentality. There's not enough to go around, and dividing us by genre, right? And I think the genre conversation for the music industry is really fascinating, because I was in a class at Berkeley the other day, and I was talking to a bunch of like 18, 19-year-olds, and they were saying, what is genre? Why should there be genre? I just love this SoundCloud music, this music I listen to on SoundCloud. I love this artist. It's like genre doesn't make any sense to them. And it's interesting. It's like the older you get and the more, culture is very powerful. You get more penned in, right? You get penned in by these notions of race, gender, sexual orientation, and genre, like all of these things that come together that put you in a little box. And we have to get out of those boxes. And like Binta says, it's a mind, you just get out. You're not actually in a box.
What's crazy, Portia, just sitting there thinking about what Saeed just said too, just to build on to that, just as a musician, I'm sitting here thinking like, damn, have I ever really met a racist musician? Like real talk, like, because as a player, that's the thing. You might start out that way, but once you downbeat, if we all right here, boom, 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 ah, boom, 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 you got to play with me, man. You know what I mean? And we're all on the same beat. You're going to come at the end of that song, by the time we're going to find common ground right there. And that's the thing. The music pricks your heart so tough. That's what makes it impossible to be really into music and hate. It's just what he said. It just made me think about that from a creator's perspective. Like, that's why it's impossible. I've been on the other side of the world and played music with people that did not speak the same language as me, but they speak C. They know what an E flat is. They know what F sharp is. It's the same language, and music being such a universal language, and such, to Binta's point, the language of love, culture of love. That's so powerful. So I just want to throw it out there that the music has been telling us the whole time. The music has been the North Star the whole time. So I just want to put that out there.
I was waiting for that, Shannon. I was waiting for that.
Sorry. Being a music creator, I understand how powerful our voices are. And, I get on stage and I pray every single time I get on stage just to allow people to feel joy, regardless of what they're dealing with, for the 90 minutes that we're going to be on stage, that they forget about every single worry, concern, argument they may have had that day, and to just feel the humanity of joy for a minute. That's something that I ask for. And, I've been very fortunate to be blessed with this talent to make that possible, to see that manifest. And when we're talking about the idea of unity, and this is something else that I brought up on my platform earlier this morning, the idea and the concept of unity and equality and this beautiful humanity that we all share, and all of the outside elements that try to get in the way and divide us and all of these things. One thing I brought up is that you cannot be delusional and ignore the fact that a lot of this stuff is not happening in people's everyday lives. So how do you move forward with manifesting this idea of this beautiful unity and connection that we share, if you can't admit that there is a problem that needs to be fixed and take the action and the intention of changing it? I totally agree with Binta on the integration. That is so important for us as a community. But what I often find too is that people use the excuse of us being human and us being, being beautiful and this idea, right? And they don't act upon getting their hands dirty to make it so that the people around them that are not seeing this have that view, that are experiencing that. It's really easy for two white boys to walk into a room and demand something without being seen as demanding. If I did that, it'd be a completely different conversation. You know what I'm saying? So yes, it is about the way that we think, and changing someone's mind is not always that easy. I may have, if Fitz stepped up and said, I want to see more Black people on the back of the stage, 9 times out of 10, it's going to happen. Excuse me, I didn't mean to curse. It's going to happen, but that is the reality of our, the construct of the space that we're in. You know what I mean? If I say it, it's like, she's passionate. She's, why can't we just hire people on their merit? You know how often I see that in comments that have to do with diversify the stage, when I'm literally talking about people not even getting the opportunity that are qualified for the job and more than qualified for the job, and they still can't get the gig. So we have to look at what we're, contributing to as individuals by ignoring or by, having this idea that can also make you complacent. I think we can have both. I think there needs to be the balance of both, the recognition and the intention of making this beauty, this beautiful thought, something that everyone can see. And it's just not the reality we're in right now, and it's going to take us a while to get there. And yeah, that's my piece on it. That's been something that's been on my mind.
I got to second what you just said, Noelle. Several years ago, a white guy, older than I, with whom I was negotiating, asked me, he's like, or accused me, I should say, of having a chip on my shoulder, and saying, why do I feel like I need to articulate all of the things that I've done or share things off of my resume with him? And I didn't, it set me off at first. It didn't set me off. It set me, I went internal and I thought that I had done something wrong. And it's only been very recently that I've understood that what I was doing was justifying my existence. And that I felt like I needed to justify my existence because of the way he and so many other people choose to interact with me or interact with Black women on the basis of the stereotypes and the things that they have in their mind that they'll say, which is suggesting that we are angry when we're not. People will know when we're angry, that we're incompetent. You will also know when we're incompetent. All of the different mix of different things that people decide because they choose to see that part of you first. And just something else that Noelle said that just really resonated with me is that this rush to see that we're all human, that humanity is beautiful. You have to be so careful because a lot of well-meaning, well-intentioned liberal people do not realize that when they do that, fundamentally they are denying the humanity and dignity of non-white people, of non-straight people, of non-Christian people. When we do that, we are denying the humanity and dignity of difference. And difference is part of what makes us human. It's that biodiversity is part of what makes it magical. It's where growth and creativity, when all of that can come together in community in a beautiful and integrated way, we actually grow the pie, So to deny the humanity of somebody by refusing to see difference and saying, well, no, it's all love, it's all good, we're all this one big, like we're actually denying human potential when we do that.
I think this is from years of trying, again, just as a woman who came in, you know, when I first moved to Nashville, I was a Jewish girl from LA in country music in 1988. And I just, you know, instead of trying to fit in, first woman song plugger, trying to fit in, not be who I was, because for so many years, you know, I think of anybody you try to fit in and try to deny who you are, and that's safer. Let's face it, that is safe. And that is not as scary. And I really hope just with all this conversation, you finally get to the point where it's like, no, I have to embrace who I am. I have to embrace my difference, and I have to be proud of it. And it is, by the way, it's scary. It's not easy. All that is not easy. It doesn't come naturally in a weird way.
Well, I think it's, you know, it's more about that same thing of putting us into boxes in order to divide us, as opposed to having the ability, for some reason, I don't, you know, having to do with history and culture, we're not able to see each person as somehow worthy unto his or herself as whoever they are, and to approach that person. I mean, I feel like we're being fed a line that, like, only in countries where there's 100% homogeneity, like Iceland or something, like everybody in Iceland is white, right? How are they different? Well, some of them are blonde. Okay. So, but like only in a community like that are people going to be interested in people's differences, like in a real way. Like, how are you different from me? Oh, you had a different type of upbringing, or you like chocolate, or you don't like disco, or whatever. You know, that we need some sort of baseline in order to be able to appreciate difference, right? There needs to be some baseline similarity. And the part that's crazy about that is the baseline similarity is that we're people. Like, we're all people, but we don't, like, we've the way that culture works, we've been divided into these boxes. So we have to see each other in the lens of the box before we can see each other as people. And that part is really scary. And, you know, one thing about this summer is that at least it's brought it out from under the hideous rock that it's been hiding under. And now we have to talk about it, which I think is ultimately in the long run, good for us. You know, we have to talk about this. I would like it to crawl back under its disgusting rock and never come out again, but it's better that we know it. It's there.
Like, the rock is a lot bigger than I thought it was, you know, like, I mean, maybe that's because I'm like a white woman, but this rock is fucking huge. And like, where did all of these ants come from? You know, it's like, oh my gosh. And like, now the rock has been like, the ants have been in bold. I don't know. It's just like a very scary.
The ants have been in bold.
You know, if it's scary for me, then Jesus, like, it's like, I can't. So we have to figure out a way to, like, you know, we're not going to change the minds of, you know, whoever's under that rock, maybe day to day, because in my, you know, and it's my fault, I'm siloed, because everyone in my feed, everyone I work with day to day, everyone thinks the same way, feels the same way. Like, I don't encounter people, I don't see anything on I'm not on Facebook anymore, but I think there are more people probably on there that would post stuff that I'd be like, oh gosh, off, unsubscribe. But like, I don't see that. Like, in my day to day, I don't see hideous stuff all the time, you know? And so I think that, like, part of the problem is making sure that at least in my day-to-day, if it's, you know, maybe an uncle who says something, you know, that is a little bit racist, or someone who just says something that's like, well, no, we do see color, you know, that's fine. But like, making sure also that, like, any way I can, I'm like giving an opportunity to someone, or making sure like someone is hiring, so if there's an open position, it's like something that I can do to hopefully make sure that more people are seen. Because I just feel like it's scarier than I even knew. And I think the last year, and I don't know if we've all been like at home and tuned in, and like white people are paying more attention all of a sudden. Like, I'm not sure what it is, but like, it's a lot, the rock is a lot bigger. And so I think things like Noelle, what you're doing, just like, are so incredibly important, because like, people all over the world see people who are on the stages, or, you know, you go to a show and you see the people working crew, and you see the engineer, you know, and like, if it's all white people, then that's what you think, you know, who controls the show physically, literally. And so stuff like that, I think, is just so incredibly important to make sure people are just seeing more diversity in every single place, because entertainment like dictates so much of our culture, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's definitely turning the mountain into an anthill. You know what I'm saying? Like you could take something that is massive, because this is a massive, you know, it's at Everest, it's larger than Everest, right? So how can you take this mountain and turn it into something that is manageable step by step until you can get to the top of it, you know? And I think that's a big part of the work. You know, I could have easily tried to take on every single, I can't, I'm one person, you know, just started, I just launched this thing, what now, 3 weeks ago, Michelle, something like that. I've been working, you know, been working on it for 6 months. It's not, you know, I'm not claiming that I'm going to change anything, you know, even maybe in 5 years, I hope that I see more diversity across stages. But what I love seeing is the amount of people that are actually working towards it. They're actually doing the work. And that's what's beautiful. That's what keeps me motivated, you know.
And I think it's important, Noel, you had mentioned this before, and Michelle, that we have so many groups coming up now. It's beautiful to see, but to work together and collaborate. You know, I've noticed, like, you know, change the conversation. The reason I'm part of She Is the Music, because we're doing the same thing, but together we're stronger. And same thing with Women in Music, like all these kind of organizations. And look, you started this. Thank you, Portia, for bringing us all together, because hopefully we'll, you know, share information and work together, because there is, like, Shannon and I talk about it all the time. We're just, all these different organizations are coming to us. And we're like, how can we work together? Because it is, we don't want to work in these silos. We have to work together.
Yeah.
It's important.
And shout out to you, Noel, again. You know, just I think Nina Simone said it best when she said something to the effect of artistry should reflect the times. You know, and artistry at its best definitely does reflect the times. And so, you know, whether it be just in how you use your platform or just in the way you're writing songs that people are creating right now, you know, shout out to even Maren Morris, you know, for using her platform and using her pen to you know, just to contribute to the conversation. So, you know, there's a lot of power in that, you know, and everybody just wherever they are, you know, just this amazing roster of panelists, just to think like, wow, the needle is moving, just to know that you guys are the places you are and having these conversations, the needle is moving. To your point again, Noel, is that, you know, it is that these conferences, you know, for you to be able to do what you do and then somebody be in the audience and then go to work tomorrow, but be different, you know, but, and, you know, speaking truth to power is a big thing too. You know, being able to speak to people that can move the needle, you know, not being afraid to tell people who can make a difference, you know, and affect culture in these organizations or in these institutions, these businesses, you know, to bring about change, not being afraid to speak up in that way. But yeah, but people definitely using their platforms in the way that you are.
I think now more than ever, going back to this idea of lifting the rock, which I really like, but I think that it's our responsibility, it's accountability, but there is now no more room for people to make excuses. And I have heard so many excuses over the course of my work, I'm sure over the course of all of your work, of, you know, we just can't find a Black female engineer. Like they don't, and it's just not true anymore. It's not okay. And I think that going forward, we all know, I feel responsible and accountable every day to seek out more people that may not be at the top of the roster. They may not be a track girl, they may not be a shikari, but we're gonna find them. And that's why the excuses have to stop. It's not okay anymore. So I love that.
I've also seen a movement of, you know, when you don't find someone, when you're seeking out diversity, and because you can't use that excuse anymore, you train someone. You know, there's an amazing, I know we're talking about music and not film, but there's a great documentary that just came out on Netflix this summer called Disclosure: Trans Lives on Screen, about the history of transgender representation. And the filmmaker, Sam Feder, who made it, who's a trans man, every single person in that production was transgender, above the line, below the line. And if they couldn't find a grip, or they couldn't find a lighting director, or they couldn't find an editor, they trained someone transgender to do it. So that entire production, start to finish, was staffed by trans folks. And that's the answer across the board, you know, is you can't find that I'm not in the music industry primarily like y'all are, but you can't find that tour person who does this, who does that. Train someone to do that job and bring them up.
Mentorship, training the next generation, let people know that it's even a career opportunity. Let women of color know, let people of color know. It's important.
And if you're working with somebody who's new on the job and may not have the experience, it's not just about mentoring them. It's about actively not judging that person to be incapable of doing the job and then using that against them. It's about figuring out how you work with that person. So, and even if it's somebody who has a little bit of experience, sometimes just sitting down with somebody and saying, hey, so like, this is how, our label works, or this is how, this a publishing deal works, or this is how, things should be going in the studio. Sometimes it's just literally about sitting down with a person and recognizing that they have the capacity to be great. As opposed to denying and saying, well, it's just another, Black engineer, another Black, grip, or sorry, we're talking about film, Black manager, Black producer. They don't know what they're doing. Their files are good, they're just a mess. Let me move on and get somebody else. And then let me tell everybody that person was bad and difficult to work with. People are there, and particularly what we have to remember in this industry, in all of the entertainment industry, is that none of us choose to be in the entertainment industry without having extraordinary passion and a desire to learn it. Because we all know that this is hard. It is a hard road. The ups are amazing. The lows, as all of us have experienced this year, are terrible and they're frightening, So like, those of us who are sticking with this, we're here because we have the passion and the desire. And what I would submit is that we have to also recognize that people have the capacity, that passion can be turned into capacity. If it is guided, if there's teaching, if there's mentorship, if there's support. And, I gotta say it at least 3 times every panel, if there's love.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more there. I think I have a very diverse team, which I love, and I got to be a part in picking them. And I think there is one thing that I always remember. I can get easily discouraged because that's the way that when someone tells me no, it kind of brings you down. I have to remember that might be the case for somebody else as well. And it's to keep them challenged and to make sure that when they hear no, they keep going and keep challenging the system, because that's something that's embedded, at least that was embedded in me. Cause it's like, oh, you're being too aggressive in a conversation, when really I'm just being direct and not in a rude way. Or I'm, the crazy Latina or this or that. And those are things that are put in us and you're like, oh, should I be quiet? Should I not say it that way? And I have to remember that is something that is passed on and inherited. And that I have to remind at least my team when I can, like, don't let somebody tell you no, don't take that first no. You have to keep going. That is going to be, and what I have found in the past like 4 months is that my team has thrived. They have found their voice in all this, because if you don't take this moment and run with it, when else are you going to?
Yeah, and I want to say this because I feel like it's important. It's sort of speaking of what Binta brought up, and this whole idea of this violent language that's used to keep people in their place, right? By saying, oh, that person's just a diversity hire, or that person is this merit based? Is that we have to also remember that the other side of this coin is an aggressive protection of the status quo, right? And the status quo is in itself false, okay? So I always talk about when I was on a treadmill reading Michelle Obama's book, Becoming, and she said, and I got to the part, I was listening on headphones, and she got to the part where she said her incoming class, her freshman class at Princeton was 75% white men. And I about fell off the treadmill because it suddenly, like, talk about the scales falling from your eyes. I was like, what? I was like, that's not an accident. That doesn't mean that white men are 75% better than everybody else. And they just had to pick, oh, this is the greatest, but oh, the fabulous white man. Are you kidding me? That was active. Like, that is an active, I'll say conspiracy. That is an active conspiracy. Are you kidding me? Only 25% of that class was anything other than white and male. I mean, they do it on purpose. It's done on purpose. So we're fighting against a system that is stacked to maintain the status quo. So whenever you hear these discouraging stereotypes that are used against you, that you hear things like, oh, you're just a diversity hire, or you're just whatever, we needed another woman on the team. It's all crap, because the other side is built to support the superstructure.
And let's be very clear about what that status quo is. The status quo is pocketbook and power. Pocket money and power, right? In this thread earlier during the chat, we were having a conversation about genre and why do genres even exist? And throughout, because it reduces competition. And when you have reduced competition, you have a much better chance of preserving the status quo. You have a much better chance of preserving your power. You have a much better chance of preserving your pocketbook. So when we can get rid of the false divisions and the false distinctions, and we level the playing field, not only will it become more competitive, but we're going to get better everything, and things will actually start to grow. But these are delimiting anti-competitive mechanisms that are meant to do what, that are vestiges of plantation capitalism, or manifestations rather of plantation capitalism, that are designed to do one fundamental thing, which is to protect the pocketbook and who has the money, and to protect the power. Last thing I'll say about this is that when people move, and this is what we're experiencing writ large in the United States right now, when people move into the protective gesture, the protective position, as opposed to innovating and risk-taking and competing with everybody, that's when you see decline.
Yeah.
That's not when you grow, that's when you see decline, because you're no longer willing to take the risks that are necessary to grow.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
It brings me to something my father once told me about money, and I've always carried it with me. He said, Noelle, when people start to get money that have never had it before, it's really hard for them to come to the place of losing that power that they've gained from the dollar that they've been able to have. And I carried that with me because I've never been one that has worked with the intention of becoming rich as an artist. I always took my art for one, I wasn't really interested in becoming an artist or becoming famous. I loved doing music, and that's what I love to do. And whether or not I had success in the career was not something that I was interested in chasing. I wasn't interested in chasing that dream. What I was interested in was helping other people do that. But yeah, like thinking about money, it is the root. It is the root of all evil. People become far more selfish when they are worried about losing something that they can't even take with them to the grave. So thanks to my dad for that.
You guys, you've been so generous with your time. We're over time, but I mean, I love all of you. This has been such an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for joining me today and being here. And this will be archived so everybody can go back and watch it and learn more things, pick up the gems that were dropped. But you guys are fantastic. Thank you so much.
Good job, Portia.
Thank you, Portia.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks to Porsche Cars North America for sponsoring this. Thanks to everybody who attended. Have a great rest of your week.
Bye all.
Love it. Take care.